Howdy, folks. Your host, Double J, back here, coming at you live for another Operation GCD Fridays. Once again, your host of Operation GCD, JJ Vance here, and perhaps more notably, not the vice president. So, won't belabor these points any longer here any further here, folks of the interwebs. Thank you all for joining me here tonight to get a little GCD, and got a real barn burner here on deck for y'all tonight. Going to be talking a lot of Mormon parapolitics with a couple fellow ex-Mormons like myself, Heidi Love and Jacob J from Rise to Liberty. And we also have BT Wallace joining us, host of the Truth and Shadow podcast for this Friday's weekly roundtable on conspiracy culture topics and high weirdness. Before we get too further into that, I have a couple quick plugs here for you folks of the interwebs. And keeping it sus. Yes, ma'am. 24/7. Thank you, Lucy Morningstar. So I got Operation GCD Sundays on Saturday coming up here tomorrow at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Times. If you need a Muppet to cover up your false flags or, high-profile parapolitical events on a federal level, well, call Judy Clark from the Boston Bomber to the Unabomber. She'll take care of your business for you. So that'll be coming up tomorrow. And unpacking some of those ideas. And then actually next Wednesday, I got Heidi Love coming up again here, along with Clint Eastwood from the Third World Assassins for an occult and esoteric review on James Bond villains, specifically Blowfield and Le Chiffre. Le Chiffre, according to author Ian Fleming, is based on Aleister Crowley, and Blowfield's based on JFK Jr.'s dad, Aristotle Onassis. So, and then last plug here I got, on Operation GCD Sundays this week, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Times, the case of Israel Keys invades Vermont. The satanic serial killer that's connected to that same Aryan Nations compound, knew Timothy McVeigh, and terrorized Vermont satanic serial killer style in 2011 and fundamentally altered the way of life there, Operation Gladio style. So on that note, yes, live. Yes, sir. So on that note, let's welcome in our guest for this evening, Heidi Love. How you doing, ma'am?
Hey, always
Thanks for
happy
joining
to
me
be
again to get a
here.
little GCD tonight.
Yes, I'm excited to chat, and always a pleasure to talk to you, JJ. Always, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I always enjoy these Mormon parapolitical discussions, and looking forward to this one here on Wednesday when you're going to join me here next week, because you're the one that introduced me to these concepts that JFK Jr.'s father was actually Aristotle Onassis.
I think so. I'm almost there. I ordered one more book. I need to stop ordering the books about Onassis and just wrap it up, but I can't help myself. And yeah, those pictures speak 1,000 words.
Right. And again, you also opened up my eyes to the fact that, blew up my brain hole. JFK Jr. was born into the Society of the Cincinnati through his mother's father, Black Jack Bouvier, and a hereditary member of the Maryland chapter.
Absolutely.
And my theories, ma'am. All roads lead back to the Society of the Cincinnati. We're going to get into some of that tonight here regarding recent events in Mormon country of Deseret, regarding Charlie Kirk. And also joining us, fellow ex-Mormon Jacob J. This dude's out here trying to out JJ me. I'll have none of it, sir. Thanks for joining me here to get a little GCD.
Anytime, man. Thank you so much for having me on again. And I told you, man, you were just way too much of a unique JJ. There's no way I can out JJ you.
Well, thank you, sir. We're all very unique in our own JJ-ness.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, 1 second, sir. I apologize. Heidi, did you have any plugs for Unfiltered Rise podcast? I apologize for not asking you there.
Sure. Everybody find me at unfilteredrisepodcast.com. Also find me on all your favorite, whatever pod chaser you like. I do have a Patreon if you can't get enough, and where we do a medical series. It's been very fun, circus, old school, like conjoined twins, all kinds of wild stuff is going on over there. And it's about to get freakier because it's spooky season coming up. So me and Janet will be doing quite a scary medical, ghoulish, ghastly surprise. So come check it out.
Nice. Well, I appreciate that. And again, thank you for joining me here tonight, ma'am, to get a little GCD. And Jacob J, sir, Rise to Liberty, host of the Rise to Liberty podcast, producer of Already Dead. I like what
Yes,
y'all
sir.
do there. I tune in frequently. Big fan of AWP there, Austin Wade Picard, and his researches. So what else y'all been working on over there? Either one of those shows? Any plugs you're working on? Want to mention?
So right now, over on Rise to Liberty, I've actually been pretty silent on the live stream front. Although I did just do a huge 2.5 hour live stream all about the basics of psyops and propaganda, breaking down some of the manipulative tactics that allow some of these clandestine operations to be able to come in and manipulate us. And really a lot of what we've been seeing through the Charlie Kirk coverage, because none of this makes sense. I mean, absolutely none of it makes sense. So
You ain't kidding, sir. You ain't, and I caught that
Right.
show you're talking about. I highly recommend it. I'll put the link for both your all shows in the show notes. But yes, sir, that was a great coverage you did there, and great insight into these
sir.
matters. Because nothing makes sense about it. Not a single lick of that tail from any aspect of any corner of it makes any sense.
No, it sure doesn't. And honestly, it just seemed like everyone kind of needed a refresher on the basics of a psyop and propaganda. It's always good to go back to the basics, to the foundation, and then you can build off from there. And once you see those basics, you can kind of pick out everything going on from there. So
I agree with you, sir. That's a great
on the
point.
front end.
That is an excellent point. Speaking of Church of Satan, I'd like to invite you, I think I've already done this before, once again, for a future Thursday show, Operation GCD Thursdays, to unpack some of these matters around the quote-unquote satanic panic and these matters of psyops. Because once you establish the framework, like you're saying, it's pretty easy to identify.
Right. And that would actually be quite wonderful. So what I've been doing on the back end is I'm going to be doing a live reading and a breakdown of the Satanic Bible itself from Anton LaVey. I have yet to see anyone cover it in any sort of meaningful way as far as, from my perspective. And as a former Satanist, I figured, I would lend my knowledge of what I know about it and kind of do a whole live reading series about it and go through it and be able to break it down. So that's why I've been kind of quiet on my channel.
I look forward to that. That's a great addition, or something great addition to conspiracy culture first and foremost. But I would like to get some of your thoughts and on those exact topics on my Thursday show in the future, sir. So
Yes,
I definitely
sir.
appreciate your insight. And last but not least, we got BT Wallace, host of the Truth and Shadow podcast, joining us here tonight. Thanks for joining me here tonight to get a little GCD, sir. Welcome back to Operation GCD.
Awesome. Nice to be here. It's great to be able to listen to some more of this Society of Cincinnati. We only covered it very briefly on that episode that dropped on Tuesday this week. But
yes, sir. I recommend folks check that one out. Truth and Shadow podcast. BT and I have had a couple barn burners over there as of late, but that one in particular, highly recommend. We did a process church one. That was a barn burner. Officially a barn burner.
Yeah.
So
that was good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. What else are you working on over there right now at Truth and Shadow?
Just more of the same podcasts. I got a couple coming out. Episode 100 drops next Tuesday. It's going to be the first time I got into triple digits on a podcast. I'm going to be talking about liminal realms with a couple of individuals, Norma, and I can never remember the other lady's name, but it's going to be an awesome show. Episode 100 coming out next Tuesday. I
love that these concepts of liminal, the liminal nature of the visible universe and non-visible universe, for that matter, because I think that's where you're getting at there, right? Is that kind of where you're heading there with this ideas of the liminal space?
Liminal spaces. This one specifically is dealing with our own inner self, the shadow self. I dive deep into that Jungian stuff, and this is pretty much more of that, dealing with our own inside personalities and things that are going on.
Nice. Well, I look forward to checking that one out, sir. And again, thank you for joining me here tonight to get a little GCD, all of y'all, and thank you folks of the interwebs. These matters of Mormon parapolitics always interest me. I know all of us have discussed this at one point in time individually, and now we all get to do it together here tonight.
Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to this.
I figured that'd be a good place to start out. I know I joined you for that anniversary show you did over there at Rise of Liberty, Jacob J.
Yes, sir.
We got a little bit into Satanism and Mormon stuff. I know BT Wallace and I have done the Ancient Alien Cargo Cults and Process Church, and And Heidi and I never convene without talking Mormon business, so it'd be a
We
good place
have
to start
to.
off.
Right.
Good.
And I'll let Heidi kick us off with some topics before we go diving into all this Kirk business. Although once
Oh
again,
boy.
my thesis of all roads lead back to the Society of the Cincinnati. Well, Charlie Kirk is no different. And on Fridays here, one of my favorite games is Who's Your Daddy and What Does He Do? And on that note,
You tell me, who is your daddy and what does he do?
it's very important who his daddy is, and it leads back to the Society of Cincinnati first and foremost. But before we get into those matters, Heidi, love, how you doing, ma'am? Did you have some other Mormon topics you want to kick us off with?
Oh, sure. Like I said, I wasn't sure what we were doing, and I know normally we go down the genealogy row. So
I got that on deck for you, ma'am. You know I do.
you know it. And I have to first tell Shelly, who wrote into me. I don't want to say your last name. Thank you. You sent me some things that were fascinating. And Shelly sent me something called One Royal Line. Have you heard of this, JJ? This is fantastic.
Is this the Merovingian stuff?
Well, it is. It ties in with that, but this is the main line that they actually used to print, and everybody used to hang on their walls when you were young. They sold it at Deseret Book, and it has a Jewish star on it, the Star of David, on it, and inside that star, which I doubt was reprinted as it says in the original, from this line, kings will rule. And Shelly, you blew my mind. Thank you so much, because it made me look into this whole thing a little bit different. And I ran smack into so many rabbit holes that I went, whoa, how did I not know this? And why is the church keeping this quiet? Because they are postulating that, and they have done a huge DNA study, not just genealogy here. They're breaking into the DNA, and they have done this big study trying to rule out Joseph Smith's other children via backwards genealogy. This is Hugo A. Perego, is I believe how Perego, and
so
he
is IGG, investigative genealogy kind of deals, right?
Yep. Well, and this has gotten crazy because he has actually linked it and has it specifically to another king, and this checks out through DNA. He's also going around spouting like Fawn Bodie's book is trash and none of these kids were his, and I've proven it. And what he did is he went and got all the ancestors of all the Smiths that are on Hiram's side, because there's a lot on Hiram's side, and he asked permission and sent them all DNA kits, and I'm talking thousands of DNA kits. I can't even believe that they did this under the radar. Well, I can, but geez. I mean, you think that the Mormons would be out like, look, we are the champions, but no, that's not what happened. And I'm like, what? Why is this so quiet? And then it leads to this crazy story and a weird haplogroup, which makes Joseph even more special than Joseph already was, if that's even a possibility for the Mormons. So this is a haplogroup M222R1B. It is extremely rare and special. It is Irish, and I have to tell you, it leads to another story of a king called the Unial of the Nine, and this gets crazy. And I just went, you've got to be kidding. But in her genealogy, in Shelley's genealogy, which she nicely shared with me, as she is a descendant of Joseph Smith himself, it connects not only to Bill Gates, but it connects to Eleazar Wheelock of Dartmouth University.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drop my mic that I don't have in my hand, but yeah.
I know the Wheelocks, they're a society family. This is all great stuff, Heidi. What's the name of that book?
Which book? This is a genealogy situation that I'm talking about.
She hasn't published this yet?
No, she just sent me her legit genealogy from familysearch.org, which I went and I validated it. And then this is called One Royal Line. And so if you guys want to look it up, extremely hard to find. Not the inventor, but the man known for Mr. Genealogy is Archibald F. Bennett, that went and did all this and started going after World War II. They sent him all over to get all the microfilm, basically like a microfilm mission, starting in 1946 to all the different countries. And they started just taking everyone's genealogical records. And he was like the person that did this. Go and try and look him up very much. It's like, yep. And he was elected in the Hall of Fame and then he died and that's all. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Is he related to Bobby Bennett, Mr. Bobby Boy of Watergate? I dare say he is, but they said, no, that's not the same one. No, of course not. Yeah. It gets
Interesting.
wild. It gets so wild that I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, he literally is responsible for this microfilming, basically. And, these secrets die with these people. They're old,
No, you ain't kidding. So this lady right here, speaking of Joseph Smith descendants, this is Kimberly Jo Smith. She learned at the age of 12 that she was the second great granddaughter of Joseph Smith, official children of Joseph Smith. So there's a lot of secrets that go on even within the Smith family. What brought this lady to my attention was my DNA tests and trying to solve my mysteries, not the least of which the genealogy of Abner Vance, who's, and again, in all likely probabilities, the son of George and Martha Washington, which that actually I found a different person who's making that claim that they're the descendant of George Washington.
Your boy comes up in this info, George.
Well, I mean, he's everywhere, right? So I'll bring that up in a minute. Though this other fellow I found on the interwebs, because I understand. Looking at that guy's claims, I'm like, well, that's lunatic. That's Looney Tunes. Because, well, first and foremost, I know better from looking at all the DNA maps and genealogy and stuff. But I also know that his story just doesn't make any sense. But it is, on its face, it sounds like a ludicrous tale that George and Martha had a secret child, so to speak, with Abner Vance. But that is what the DNA shows. That is what all the evidence exhibits. And in my studies, I find this lady, Kimberly Jo Smith, the second great granddaughter of Joseph Smith. And the reason why I think I'm related to her is we see these families intermingling. You said George comes up everywhere. Well, her Smiths intermarry with Lawrence Washington's descendants. George's elder half brother, the one he inherited Mount Vernon from.
It's a twisted web we weave. And, when we talk about these things, since I last talked to you as well, did I bring up the Godbeites and the Godby guy? This is Grant's. Oh, this is a good one. I wish I brought my notes down here. So there's a sect of Mormonism called the Godbeites. And this guy is actually literally responsible for having the Federal Reserve come to Utah. So that's real. And I was like, what? Yeah, he was a mentor to Heber J. Grant. And so anybody can look this up. If you look up Godbeites, Godbites, you'll find all about him. And he's just completely forgotten, but he was the one that actually brought in the Federal Reserve. So I'm like, well, that's interesting. I mean, you're not a kidding when you say that it's just all related. I'm sure if you look him up, he's Society of Cincinnati.
I would be surprised. Jacob J., what's your thoughts on all these genealogical matters? Was that a big part of your Mormonism? Do you get involved in a lot of this stuff?
So I never really got into the genealogy aspect of it. Obviously, when I left the church, I was pretty young, starting my rebellious phase. However, so me and my sister, we have different fathers. So I actually had 3 grandmothers. Just, explaining that little bit. So everyone's like, what? 3 grandmothers? What the hell, Mormon? But
well, I mean, that's pretty typical, right?
Right. But
a lot of multiple wives in the history of Mormonism, right?
Well, luckily it wasn't that sort of a situation. It was a bit more modern than that. But so
I didn't know some my plural marriages in modern Mormonism, sir. Just if I may,
right.
These things do go on still.
Yes, yes, they do, and they are fully out in the open. There's more than just the FLDS.
Yeah, it's not just an HBO series, right?
Right. which I've actually never seen. I
No,
was
I
always
haven't either,
told I
and I
need to
couldn't-
watch it, but
I've been
You
told
know.
that so many times, and I have I got a real conflation with Bill Paxton and Bill Pullman. I know I shouldn't,
Right.
and I couldn't tell you which one's in that. It's either Bill Paxton or Bill Pullman, but I can picture them both in that series.
right.
Under the
right.
Banner of Heaven on Hulu is better, in my opinion.
Is it?
The other ones, well, because it's more based on reality instead of like
Right.
just a show. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I know all of my grandparents were really into the genealogy side of things. And I do have some copies of genealogy of one side of my family. But it was never anything that I necessarily got into. Even though I did leave the church, I did make the conscious decision, like, I don't want my records removed. So, because I know that's actually a big thing for a lot of people that end up leaving the church is they get their records removed. And I figured it was probably
You mean
just
like an
better just to
official
leave
quit?
mine.
You
Mhm.
go-
Yeah.
Does that mean like officially quitting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did more of a
They
quiet quit.
will. Right. Yeah.
I
Cause
just-
they
I just
will
stopped
keep your
going.
church records. Yeah. They will keep your church records. They just stop reporting on them. So, and they do kind of put it down as like, I'm not sure exactly what the official vernacular is, but they do put it down as like no longer attending or something like that. Like NLA, I think.
Oh, sir,
no
they're
longer
keeping track.
attending.
They're doing attendance. They're
Oh,
keeping track.
for
There's no doubt
sure.
about that.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Speaking of the folks
And,
that keep track, the guy that kept track in my ward, if I may, sir, and this may be maybe familiar to some of the other stuff we're seeing today out in your all's country there in Deseret, Utah. We see in this Kirk shooting, there was this Congressman Lyman. Is that his name?
Yeah, Phil Lyman.
He's coming front and center. So his cousin, Lyman, was the guy that would do attendance in my church as a teenager and growing up there. Well, as a teenager in
Interesting.
Cincinnati.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're descended from Asa
Sure.
Lyman, one of the first 12 apostles of Joseph Smith, if you will.
Right.
Charlie was
Or at least the guy I knew
praising-
did. I don't know about this guy, but saying Lyman's.
I haven't said a whole lot about Charlie, but the one thing I will say is he was praising the Mormons right before he died. He was speaking about how his team was made up of Mormons and that he was not a Christian that condemned Mormonism. And then it was very rapid right after that everything went south. And I've kind of kept my mouth shut about it, but it's very interesting when you go back and look at assassinations, how many people spoke about Mormonism right before. It's a little scary, but it's not just regular Mormons anymore. There are new factions of Mormonism, not just old Mormonism,
Yes, ma'am.
that I dare say are Templar Mormonism or Amorc, Mormonism, that are very out in the public now. I mean, they keep it hush, but it's out there. It's like a new age Mormonism, maybe.
Yeah. I would
yeah.
agree with that.
Yep. And it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. There's actually a faction that was brought to my attention not that long ago. It was Mormons for Transhumanism, which was absolutely like a terrifying thought to me. However,
That's
it just
creepy,
it made total sense. I was like, oh, of course, there would be a group of Mormons into transhumanism. But what was frustrating to me was that so I was actually dealing with some of these people like head on, because some of what I cover on my show and in my work, I also fight against the technocracy. Privacy and technology things are like a big deal to me. And so, fighting against some of these technocrats, they were using language that was so like, this is going to free everyone. This is going to bring liberty to everyone. So they were using, the language of a libertarian, and, being involved with the libertarian movement, that really upset me, because I knew for a fact these people are not interested in liberty or freedom or anything. And so I've had to push back on those people quite a bit.
That's
Kind
very
of window dressing, right?
Luciferian.
They'll tell you
That's
they're
very
into liberty,
Luciferian.
right? But it's kind of window dressing.
Right.
It's their version
right.
of liberty.
Right. Yeah. It's that whole satanic inversion,
I was about to say this is a great statement, Huggy Bear. Thank you. So I was about to say this. So what you're describing of this transhumanism, Gnostic, neo fucking Mormonism, if you will. There, it sounds very much like the Process Church. We see the Hamblin folks who founded Kanab, Utah. The family that founded Kanab, Utah down there, the folks that we see involved with some really weird satanic cult situation out there in Utah over the last recent decades concerning David Leavitt and gang there. We see that there's a lot of crossover with a lot of these ideas, and the Hamlins seem to be at the center of some of that stuff. With again, they're the ones who founded Kanab, and the guy, I think is it David Hamblin? I think was the original founder there.
Oh, David Hamlin. Once
I
you
think
get into some of these people, it's
they keep naming themselves after each other, right? So it's like David,
Right.
David. So the original David, I think I'll look him up. I think it was the original David Hamblin.
Kanab,
The guy that founded Kanab, he also finds the area we now know as Area 51.
Correct.
the Mormon
He's the original
and
founder of that.
Mormons, Utah Area 51, right? Like,
Yeah,
is
which is
another crossover we
Area
see.
52. It's
There we go. Thank you, Desert Rain.
officially-
Jacob Hamblin.
yes,
Yes.
Jacob Hamlin House. Yes. So
Well, Desert
Kanab,
Rain also brought to my attention, ma'am, that the Scowcrofts, the Mormon Scowcrofts, are very prominent down there in Kanab. Brent Scowcroft, Henry Kissinger's right-hand man, National
yeah.
Security Advisor to 3 U.S. presidents, Major General in the U.S. Air
Wingnut.
Force, and his assistant would start a neo-process cult. J.J. Bryan would start a neo-process cult known as Victorianism. So I think we see a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
You know the Scowcrofts, right, ma'am?
Oh,
Or
yes.
you know of them.
Right.
You know of
Right
them.
wing nuts. Major. Yep.
Very
Yep.
prominent family.
Very.
Same with the Hamlins. Thank you, Desert
Yes.
Rain.
Yes,
This
yes.
is Desert Rain, despite not being Mormon, has a lot of great Mormon facts for us here.
She
she's
also
always-
mentioned, the vow that they took to avenge Joseph's death, and they went ahead
Yeah.
and they actually made more than a vow. They made a secret society called the Order of the Black Sticks, and they all got the canes, the death sticks of the rotting corpses of Joseph and Hiram, and they gave them to these people that swore this, and they called it the Order of the Black Sticks. It's very interesting.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes. Yep.
So on these
Again,
matters
very-
of the,
Black sticks.
I'll bring that up in a second. I did not know that. Well, I'm looking for some to bring that up here. Did y'all know that Kash Patel, by all appearances, is dating a wealthy Mormon multimillionaire guy in Vegas there
Oh. Mm.
and living
No,
in
I
his
did
house?
not.
that is the word.
Yeah,
That
he
is the
actually
word on the
requested a
streets.
telecommute. What's that, sir?
I said that is the word on the streets that he is shacking up with him in Vegas. So
Well, he requested a telecommute from that guy's house.
they're just
That much-
friends.
That much
They're
is
just
known.
friends.
The relationship, I suppose, is somewhat supposition. I will admit I'm a supposition that I'm saying they're banging, but let's be honest about the situation.
Yeah, it is a little weird. Like, how old is Kash Patel? 53, 54?
I think
And
he's 44, 45.
Is he? God, that's a hard 44, 45.
Ah,
must be
That's
all that
funny.
visitation to Valhalla or something.
ah.
Well, that was a weird statement, right?
Yeah, that was an incredibly weird statement. It's like, aren't you Indian? like that.
Well,
just,
again, I'm sure his folks are, but it doesn't seem like he is. So Kash Patel, spotted at nightclubs, spends more time in Vegas than at work, claims an ex-FBI officer.
Right.
And again, he requested himself to telecommute from there.
that's so wild. Jeez.
Oh, the
Jeez.
web we weave. Oh,
So we
and,
see
and
Kash
hey,
Patel making those statements about Charlie Kirk, right? In
Right.
Mormon country of Deseret, what's his boyfriend's involvement?
Right.
Major GOP donor too. And again, so the team behind Charlie Kirk, he's a base. I don't want to say I'm not speaking ill of the dead, no Charlie Kirk, but Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk are a wholly owned subsidiary of Team Trump.
Right.
Whether on its face or not, people don't realize. So who is his daddy? What does he do? Robert Kirk, architect for Trump Tower. He
Right.
lives in Chicago.
Saw that.
So out of that Chicago element with his father are a bunch of other GOP donors and 33rd degree Freemason, owner of the Chicago Cubs, these kind of folks, right? And they he was the RNC finance chair. That he was his elder brother, that guy Ricketts. His elder brother is a U.S. senator from Nebraska. He's a member of the Maryland chapter of the Society of the Cincinnati Man. Maybe he knew JFK Jr. I don't know.
Sure.
Anyway, so these are the folks that made Turning Point USA. This team of folks in Chicago around his father, and I don't know where a lot of them sit. I think a lot of them are, I got questions about a lot of their. They're not loony. Well, I'm not gonna say they're not Looney Tune lefties, because one of those guys, a 33rd degree Freemason, a Jewish fellow, doesn't mean anything necessarily, but he was the staffer for Howard Lowenstein, the guy that was holding RFK's body on the Ambassador Hotel when Lowenstein was a secret CIA agent, we later find out, and he was a congressman at the time. And when he goes back to New York from Los Angeles in June of '68, this is the guy that picks him up as staffer, who was a member of the Weather Underground. And I would assert the Weather Underground is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Process Church, based upon the statements of their leaders, Bernadette Dorn and Bill Ayers. And they're also out of Chicago. And this guy, this 33rd degree Freemason, him and Bill Ayers go back. That's what I'm saying. I don't know where these folks lean politically speaking. They claim to be backing Trump, but there's a lot of tomfoolery going around Charlie Kirk. I can tell you that much right now. From my own, from what I witnessed. And when I say what I witnessed, I didn't know Kirk or his father really, but I knew that these other folks, they hired my private detective agency to do open source intelligence reports, things of that nature, and didn't care for them. They also tried to get me to run for U.S. Senator for Ohio before my cousin J.D. Vance did, about 12 months before that. So again, these folks are the movers and the shakers that built Turning Point USA. And we look at their advisory board and we see Michael Aquino's buddy, General Paul Valle, Mr. QAnon General, on that board.
Oh,
so
of course.
What is going on there? I don't know, but Charlie Kirk's father, again, architect for Trump Tower, and again, his father's father. So Charlie Kirk's fifth great grandfather, Lieutenant Kirk in the Virginia chapter of the Society of Cincinnati. And you don't have to take my word for it. Jeremiah Kirk. Let me just bring up his documents, his bona fides, if you will. BT will appreciate that. Some Catholic talk there, bona fides. What are your thoughts on all these matters? We've talked about Society of Cincinnati stuff, BT. What are your thoughts on all these matters with Kirk, first and foremost, the Mormons, and the fact we got more society stuff?
No, the interesting thing to me is Charlie Kirk. I haven't really followed much of his stuff. I mean, to be honest, a lot of his commentary I don't see eye to eye with him, and I've said as much on my Facebook posts. But besides that,
I don't want to get too, but I don't do a lot of politics you identify as a libertarian, right?
Yeah, I do.
So what are the biggest positions from? I'm familiar with more or less what Charlie Kirk's positions were. But what are the biggest for folks who are unfamiliar, like myself here? What are the biggest positions on like the libertarian side? Because Jacob J, formerly of the Libertarian Party as well. What are some of the biggest positions there that you don't see within what Charlie Kirk was talking about?
Well, my main things is a lot of his arguments towards things like capital punishment, stuff like that. I don't believe in that. We're in the 21st century. We shouldn't be, gassing people.
I salute you, sir. I do not agree with capital punishment either. Right. I do not like the death penalty.
But I mean, libertarians, free market economy, things like that. I mean, that's one of the main driving points that I appreciate. Obviously, just non-aggressive policies. I don't believe in using word violence, because violence seems to beget violence. Whether it's, when I was a kid, it didn't take very many words to make the bully punch you in the face. So obviously, words do cause violence, and it seems to be kind of a fallout. But I mean, libertarians want free speech. We want, free press. We want all the things that really seem to be what our founding fathers might have been pushing for in the Constitution.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So like, in many respects, Charlie Kirk sells himself as an America First constitutionalist. So where's he off base with what you see as some of those libertarian constitutional values from what he was professing?
Charlie Kirk's like his political statements?
Yeah, his platform. I mean, again, I heard some of his talks. I mean, he's against, does a lot of, he's obviously Christian based on a lot of his points.
I'm no expert in Charlie Kirk's political. I can't speak.
I mean, I would describe a lot of his views as very libertarian of sorts.
Right. I mean,
they're pretty close.
He was a supporter of, free speech, free press. But
yeah, he definitely wasn't.
If you're not an American,
Republican. I know country club Republicans.
Right.
They helped build. Some of those guys helped build Turning Point USA. Country Club Republicans. Not a fan.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
a
mean,
fan.
I
You're
don't
not
think
a
there's
fan
a
of
big,
either, by the way.
big difference between libertarian and constitutionalist, to be honest. It's kind of, small government, things like that. And most of the things with, Mr. Kirk, it was religious statements typically I'd listen to and go, that's not really something I'd agree with. Things of that matter.
So we see him in a state like Utah, the nation of Deseret, if you will, because I think a lot of these folks don't view it as America that run that place, the mothership
Right.
in Salt Lake. Governor Cox, he doesn't seem very Republican, does he? He's certainly not a
He's not.
libertarian or constitutionalist or America First type of character.
He's not. Cox is flat out an opportunist. Period. He is whatever he needs to be in whatever moment that he's in.
So he sounds like a politician.
Yeah, no.
I would describe him as a fucking commie, but please continue, sir.
I've seen him go real libertarian. I've seen him go real Republican. I've seen him go real Democrat. I think you had it right there, is that he is a politician, and he is like such a politician. He's a stereotype. He is the stereotypical politician. I'm pretty sure he doesn't even have a thought of his own. He just goes along with whatever script to get him to the next plateau. And, I think a lot of that comes from his family, which his family owns.
Who is his daddy and what does he do?
I can't remember his dad's name. Obviously, Cox is the family name, but they actually own all telecommunications in the state.
Are
There's
they
actually
the Cox cable family?
I believe so. There's so I actually did a thread about it. I'll send it to you, all about the UN coming into Utah and taking over. I mean, we're building the first 15-minute city here, which is on the side of the old Utah State Prison, which they're selling as like this huge like innovation and in engineering and city planning and all of this stuff, and it's just a bunch of commie gobbledygook. But it is a legitimate 15-minute city. I believe there is a connection somewhere. I'm not sure if it's him directly though.
His wife's sister's married to an Osmond, but they have a garage band together, it says.
Yeah. So
what's up with all these garage band enthusiasts, dude? Everyone in the Biden administration had a garage band.
Right. He had a jam
Even
band.
that lady in the disinformation campaign lady, she had a shit-themed Harry Potter cover band. I'm not making that up.
Oh, dude. Cox's jam band was the worst. It's so cringe. Like, cringe would say it's cringe.
Was it a themed Harry Potter band, dude? Was it that cringe?
It's
because that lady was this close to making decisions on what was or was not disinformation, sir.
Right.
Wow.
It was that cringe. But it is not, a Harry Potter themed band. But I mean, they were doing like soft rock cover versions of like Eminem songs, and
that's bad. That's bad.
Yeah,
it
was bad. It was real
Mormon,
bad. I'll find a video and send it to you. Yeah, it is bad. It is real bad.
Yeah, y'all remember this? The disinformation governance board?
Yeah.
It was a thing for a hot minute.
I sure do. I actually wrote an article about it.
Yeah, the lady in charge of it was part of the Ukraine nonsense. Go figure, right?
Scary Poppins.
Yeah, what was her name? I can't think of it.
Oh, I don't know. I just always called her Scary Poppins because of that. Grotesque
they've removed
smile.
it from Wikipedia, the source of all information on the interwebs, apparently.
Right, right, yep. What is her name? That is going to drive me nuts.
I'll look it up. No worries.
But yeah. So
how weird is that, though? Right? We have some lady who's got a shit-themed, Harry Potter-themed cover, garage band, Nina Jankowicz. And she's going to decide what is or is not fact in this country. This is the Muppet world I'm describing.
She was gung-ho about it. She was so upset.
Poppins, that's right. She did a Mary Poppins covered song about disinformation. That's right. You are correct, sir.
Yeah, and she is genuinely terrifying.
Oh, dude. In what world besides Muppet World would you have someone who has a shit theme, a grown adult who has a shit themed, Harry Potter themed cover band?
Right.
And we're going to entrust this person with making decisions of anything? I'm surprised they get out of bed every day.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
but let's
it's,
be honest though. The one thing we did miss out on without having this disinformation governance board is looking at the gorgeous Nina Jankowicz. Let's just take a look at her. I'm not convinced that's not a dude.
Oh no.
I'm not.
Oh
I'm
no.
not
like-
convinced either.
And it's not the only, wouldn't be the only. There's a handful of trans folks that had major positions in the Biden administration, not the least of which this one.
course.
So it claimed to have been
Or
pregnant at
open
one point in
fire.
time. I did a deep dive. Yeah, there was no pictures of said pregnancy.
Very
Just saying.
convenient. Very
Just saying, look
convenient.
at that jowl, dude. That jowl will scare most
That's a
men off right there. Like, you don't
very
wanna mess with
sharp
that.
jaw. Mm-hmm.
That's a better chin than I do.
That's what I'm saying,
Rough.
dude. You don't want to mess with that. You're like, I can't even knock that dude out. Is that a lady or a dude? Look at that chin.
Yeah, no
Oh
kidding.
man.
No
Oh
kidding.
Right.
man. Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
so
Well,
Centricom is actually Governor Cox's family's company. And they have actually wired up the entire state, even the
Oh,
rural
thank you.
areas.
I got lost in Harry Potter shit verse, sir. So I'm appreciate you bring us back.
You're good.
Nice.
So I actually sent you the thread. So, check it out whenever. But yeah, they've actually wired up the entire state to basically a centralized communication system, which is entirely scary considering, we have the NSA centralized
Well, there
here.
you go.
And
I was going to say, is this involved the NSA there at not
yeah.
Dugway, but what's the name of that location?
Well, it's the NSA data center.
Is it
And
Dugway Proving Grounds?
no, it's actually in Utah County. Dugway Proving Grounds is out in Tooele County, which is
Utah County, David Levitt's old county, the home of the
Yes,
Charlie Kirk
sir.
shooting.
yes,
yikes.
sir.
Right.
Which is actually just where a lot of these things are going down. It's where a lot of the tech companies have moved. We got Adobe down there, we got Google down there, we got Windows down there, or Microsoft, I guess, whatever. It is like a second Silicon Valley almost. It's blowing up, and there's all sorts of involvement from the UN, which is just insane to me. I actually argued, let's see, it was the one of the county commissioners. I argued against her husband on We Are the People podcast. And what was interesting is I won the argument, and the next thing we know, their entire computer and their entire system got hacked, and they wiped out the episode, so it never came to light, unfortunately. So, but I was really simply and easily able to destroy his argument. It was all that conversation about, this transhumanism stuff will be able to usher in a great, amazing new world, and it's all about freedom and liberty and all of this stuff. And I was super easily able to just knock that down with one simple question, and he wasn't able to answer it. And unfortunately, they ended up getting hacked because of that. So I feel bad for that, but it would have been a great episode.
Yeah.
I have to say, you brought up the Osmonds, and just so people know that, Howard Hughes under Bob Bennett, when he bought the Mullen Company as a CIA front, the only people that he had for his clientele was Howard Hughes, the LDS Church, and the Osmonds. And I find that interesting that they've kind of been there all along, right? We see this over and over again. This is clear back in Watergate time. And what is this whole thing for? He has one employee, and who was it? It's just CIA. And they admitted
Right.
it. It's CIA cover. And so, it makes you wonder where the Osmonds have been involved in this consistently. And then, we also know the only part that the Mullen Company did was to represent the Mormon Tabernacle Choir so that they could go all around the world selling expensive tickets to big people so they could sit by each other at the performance and have a little chat.
And did you happen to
Some great
see
points,
the
ma'am. Some great points. These are a powerful bunch. Yes, sir.
did you happen to see the very, very odd chamber that was in the
Oh, I
Osmond's
did.
house.
No, the altar,
Yes.
not
Yeah,
just the chamber.
yeah.
Holy moly.
Chamber and altar,
Yes.
which supposedly was a steam room.
Right. And it's all tiles. So it's like a kill
Right.
room, basically. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that.
Wow.
I wouldn't say that.
Allegedly, it is.
Allegedly, but it would
I'm
be
sure
easy
y'all are
cleanup.
familiar with Wilford Brimley, right? Did y'all know he was a Mormon?
I
No.
sure did.
Brings us some
I didn't.
famous ancient alien cargo cult tales of the 1980s, like Cocoon. And before he was a Mormon in Hollywood, he was the bodyguard to Howard Hughes, because Howard Hughes employed Mormons.
Hughes is always there.
Interesting.
And his agent for his entire career in Hollywood was a Scientology connected, I don't have her membership card, Betty McCart, who was Bob Cocaine Evans' underling and assistant to Al Ruddy,
Really?
the CIA guy who helped produce Godfather.
Wow.
These people all know each other, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Not
These
just
ancient alien
know,
cargo
they're in
cultists stick
bed.
together.
Right. Yeah. I
100%.
mean, it really does seem like the 4 degrees of Kevin Bacon, because everyone's not that far away from each other. You know,
Okay.
cut out a couple of those degrees.
Jacob,
Well,
how
you
did you
know-
feel that, we've been in a drought for, I don't know, every year of my entire life. And today they posted this article that they dumped a whole bunch of water that I don't know where it came from into the Great Salt Lake. Like, I get about the ecosystem, but now that
Right.
is unusable water.
Right.
Uh,
You know, so as far as a drought goes, I'm not entirely sure. I do know that the state got really embarrassed over the condition of the Great Salt Lake, and what they're trying to do is dry up the northwest wing of the lake, and basically chop off a bunch of the volume, and so that way the level of the lake won't keep dropping. But I also know that they've privatized a bunch of the water inlets, and they refuse to go through and be able to regulate upstream water regulation, which is really the biggest problem. And if they don't fix this,
especially
then
since we don't have enough water for the state, but we're pouring
Right.
it in. And I get about the ecosystem, I do,
right,
but people have to come first. That's
Right.
just,
right.
I
Well,
don't get
and
it.
that's the problem. The
Yeah.
lake dries up, and then we have arsenic wind blowing around.
Exactly. Yep. I
Which
was
is
just gonna
about the
mention.
scariest thing ever.
Hmm.
So it
Wow.
will just be uninhabitable wasteland. It'll be
Yes.
fallout.
Well,
speak-
and
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, go. I was just going to say, let alone the amount of water that they harness from that to cool down their supercomputers, because
Right.
we all know that that's the only way that they can do that. So I
Right.
wonder why they're harnessing it. Well,
Right. I mean,
Right.
the NSA data computers, they
Mm-hmm.
actually had to create a whole new size of file size for them because of how much data they are actually storing in that facility. It's something above a terabyte, whatever is above terabyte.
Yeah.
They had to
They have
create a
to cool
whole
it
new
down with
system.
water. Yeah.
Right, which they're actually getting for like $1.30 a gallon from the city. The farmers have to pay $1.60.
Mhm.
So, and there was big controversy over that. I mean, they're trying to screw over the citizens here any chance they get, but they slap a smile on Governor Cox's face and say, "Go out and make everyone happy."
Yeah.
So how
Not
does all these
everyone.
programs get into Utah? Is it because of the fact that Deseret, the Mormons that is, are an offshoot of the Society of Cincinnati, and all these fuckers know each other? So you look at all the politicians in Utah. I mean, I don't know about Cox. I'm looking them up right now, but let's look at the Romneys, Mittens Romney,
Yeah.
and let's look at the Levitts. They're cousins. They're both from Heber J.
The
Grant.
Levitts are very interesting. Yeah.
Oh,
You know?
yes.
We look at Phil Lyman. Like I said, he's probably a paternal descendant of Asa Lyman, one of the first counselors.
Yeah, and then
in
there's
Cormac 12.
the Bangaters. The Bangater family is also
Mhm.
very well
The
known here.
Marriotts. The Marriotts.
Yes, the Marriotts.
Well, but
we
those are
have
also just the Marriotts and the Huntsmans are also just descendants of like Heber J. Grant and gang, right?
right,
Mhm.
right,
That made a combination with, I mean, they merged into HGCC with the gays. So I mean, they're all definitely in it together. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And if you go back even further, this is one of mine and Heidi's common kinfolk, one of our shared heritage. And this dude is John Lothrop, 1584 to 1653. He was the first settler to Barnstable, Massachusetts in 1639. Pay attention to those dates, because when we talk about Charlie Kirk's heritage, all of his people come at the same time. They're in the 1640s to Virginia, including the Monroe family, because his foremother is the sister, disregard, his fourth great grandmother Kirk is the first cousin to President James Monroe family. So
interesting.
And even the Kirks showed up in Virginia in 1640. They got there a little bit after the Jamestown stuff, but he's got some Jamestown heritage as well. I'm not common kinfolk with Kirk, but he's got basically his heritage comprises of most of the Jamestown folks that I'm not kinfolk to, and the other Virginia families. So I'm a Randolph, include the Washingtons, the Dandridges, all those gangs and whatnot, Madisons, right? Those are all my family trees. But he doesn't have those. He's got the other ones. It is an interesting composition he has. But all of these people come, and why is it folks that arrive here in 1640? Just because you're the first ones to the party, does that mean you get to fucking run the party? That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean?
The Mormons said so because they had the biggest guns, I think.
Well, I mean, if it wasn't the case, why would everyone be descended from John Lothrop here, not just me and Heidi there? No disrespect, man. So we look at the folks that this dude is descended from. This guy, some powerful folks in America, not just the Mormons. Millard Fillmore, James Garfield, not James Garfield Langley, the CIA cover for that satanic serial killer Edward Wayne Edwards, but the President James Garfield. Useless S. Grant, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the two Bushes, Benedict Arnold, Joseph Smith, Hiram Smith, Wilford Woodruff, Oliver Cowdery, Parley P. Pratt. There we go. That's another one. The Huntsmans and the Mittens Romney and gang, they're all from Parley P. Pratt as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's one big club and we ain't in it,
Me and JJ are in it, but we don't want to be.
Even the ones that are in it, right? We're not really in it. You know what I mean?
We don't want to be. We're out of it.
So then we get Thomas Dewey, the Huntsmans, Sarah Palin, go figure. Jim Guy Tucker, go figure.
If you're related to one,
brothers,
it's all of them. It's all of them. Like me and JJ have done this, and we've gone through, and people say, you're lying. You can't be related to all those people. I'm like, bet you're related to one important one. You're related to all of them. It's crazy.
I'd like to bring your attention to this man's name right here, if I may. And if you want to know how Jeffrey Dahmer was able to call the Vice President of the United States in 1978 and say, hey, Walter Mondale, what's up, dude? I'm in D.C. I'd like to check out your office along with my high school classmates. Well, I suspect it has something to do with his heritage. He's descended from John Lothrop as well.
Right, which lends a lot of credibility to him being some form of a Manchurian.
Big time. Oh, yes, ma'am.
It's kind of who they target.
Desert Rain's also of the Virginia families of the Randolphs, like Thomas Jefferson, descended from Pocahontas as well through Isham Randolph. But yeah, so Charlie Kirk's got an interesting heritage. He's not part of that component of families. He's looking at his family tree. I was kind of surprised that he and I didn't have a lot of crossovers. I have a lot of Kirks that I'm related to because they're from that same mix of families, but it's not his wing of the Kirks.
Right. So it actually is somewhat credible to say that he possibly could have been the president one day.
Oh, for sure. He's a Monroe Kirk. I mean, his forefather was a member of somebody in that family. If it's not his father, I don't think it is, because, I take guesses, right? So the paternal heritage of the Society of Cincinnati, when they don't have any sons, like JFK Jr.'s grandfather, right?
Right.
He had daughters, and then his daughter had one son. Jackie had one son there. One son died. JFK Jr. lived. Patrick, I believe, died at birth. It's easy to determine who gets that membership. But when you look at other folks that have many sons and whatnot, it's a little bit more difficult because I don't know if it's automatically the firstborn.
Right.
It's supposed to be, but we know how that goes.
Right.
Yeah.
These people are dicks. They'll stab their own mother in the back in some cases, I think.
Has anyone taken a look at Erica's family? And
I haven't yet, sir. I will. She is a pageant winner. I saw someone mention that.
She looks like a Mormon. I know I shouldn't say that, but she is Jesuit college. I will say that.
Because I mean, from everything I've been able to research up, and this is everyone else's research. I didn't do any of the work, but there's a lot of people bringing up. Yeah, I mean, she was a millionaire by the time she met Charlie, and she was involved in a lot of different. Like there was a foundation she was involved with, dealing with relocating kids of war, which sounds like child trafficking to me.
We need to look
I'm
into
Googling it now,
Angel
sir.
Studios
I'm Googling it now.
connection there.
Right.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there's, I know she has military in her family background.
Oh, she went to
She-
Liberty University.
I told you, Jesuit.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yep.
Jesuit? I thought that was evangelical. That's Jerry Falwell.
Okay,
I think that's labeled Jesuit.
That whole Chicago team where his father's connected to, the folks that built Turning Point, they all operate through Liberty.
So,
And then on top of it, you guys do know I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in this just before you go. You know what Shapiro said after this whole thing, right? With
Yes.
the mic.
yep. Right.
Oh my gosh.
So,
I mean,
so I actually just had a message sent to me. My mother was watching the stream, and she wanted to bring up that we were related to the Crockett's.
Oh,
here
dude,
in
Davy
Utah.
Crockett?
I don't know. I know one of our family members was a judge on the Utah Supreme Court.
We'll have to get together on these
Crockett
matters.
or
sir.
Crocker? Crocker or Crockett?
Crockett's.
Okay.
What?
Davy
Davy Crockett,
So-
this is a society family again, and Davy Crockett learned his frontiersman duties according to stories and legends from Abner
Right.
Vance.
Right.
So this was he
Yeah,
trained
and there's,
Daniel Boone trains Abner then trains Davy Crockett and some others. So
Right.
most of my family tree is frontiersmen, not just Abner.
Mhm.
So the
Right.
Maynard boys,
Right.
for example, myself and Charles Manson are Maynard McCoys from Pikeville, Kentucky. My grandmother Vance is a double
Interesting.
Maynard. Her folks were both first cousins Maynard. My Appalachian family tree lacks the requisite branches to be called a tree. It's more of an Appalachian tree.
Totem pole.
And
Just the
I'm
stem.
utterly shocked I don't have web feet, a recessed chin line, and a sub 70 IQ. But because both my grandfolks Vance, their folks are both first cousins Vance, first cousins Maynards.
Right.
So, and the Maynards are the first ones across the Appalachian Mountains as far as the modern day history goes.
Right.
And mine and Chuck's forefather murdered the pirate Blackbeard, apparently, in the early 1700s.
Interesting.
Well, you get one damaged one, and then you get one genius one. That's why they do
Right.
it. You know that.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say
I'm
that because
serious.
another Clan Vance legend here is Devil Zane's Hatfield McCoy's there. I'm both. He's descended from Abner twice over. Devil Zane's grandfather twice over from his mother and father, both from Abner. And we see, the reason he's called Devil Zane's is because he was known in the family as to be of the devil. His name was Anderson Hatfield, and he had a first cousin in the family known as Anderson. They were both named Anderson Hatfield. They're both the same age. So the family decided to call one Devil Zane's and the other one Angel Zane's. So that's where he got that nickname from. So I heard that a lot growing up. My grandmother would tell me, because again, she was McCoy. She and my grandfather, again, my second great grandfather Vance was Devil Zane's first cousin. So
Right.
a couple times over. Again, Appalachian family pull. But yeah, I would hear that a lot. Like you got too much your cousin in your boy, you got the devil in you. So that was an oftentimes remarked, to me about that's it's funny how these names stick. Because obviously that dude's still known today as Devil Zane's Hatfield, but
Right.
the nature I often am intrigued by these nature of folklore around these topics, and wonder why we have these topics like the Hatfields and McCoys are so popular, and why people like Charles Manson got to be where they were.
So
I like to play 6 Degrees of Charles Manson because that dude is connected to all sorts of shit.
yes, he is through and through.
Let me give you 2 real quick. Bryan Cranston. Why is it that all of Charles Manson's friends bring us
Really?
murder and drugs? Bryan Cranston, Breaking Bad. You can
I
hear it
did
for
not know
yourself.
that
Clip
one.
on YouTube. He was friends with Charles Manson.
Wow.
Danny Trejo, Machete, first cousins to Robert
Yeah,
Rodriguez.
That doesn't surprise me.
He was friends with Charles Manson.
Well, I mean,
Just
they
saying.
spent time in the same prison.
There you go.
So,
That's where they met.
because Danny Trejo's an actual ex-convict.
Right.
And that's how he got his first acting gig was he walked onto a movie set kind of by accident is what he says. And somebody pointed at him and said, "Hey, can you play an ex-convict? We need somebody." And he's like, "Well, Yeah.
These are the
So-
stories I'm saying are bullshit, sir. I like how you point that out, that is the tale. But I'm saying who is his daddy? What does he do? Well, his daddy's brothers with his mom's brothers with Robert Rodriguez's dad.
The filmmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Which is
doesn't
where he
seem
got
right.
his start in Hollywood. So that's what I'm saying. They come up with these fancy tales, but when you get to the root matters of it, it seems to be, who is your daddy? What does he do? He's never a plumber. He's never an electrician.
Right.
So you were right, ma'am. Charlie Kirk's wife went to a Denver undergrad Jesuit school of Regis University and got a law degree from Liberty.
She also got a doctorates too, I believe. And she was a busy little girl.
So I don't know much about her, but she was the 2012 Miss Arizona pageant winner under Donald Trump.
Yep. Part of the Trump pageant legacy.
Mhm.
What is this surname, Francie? What is that?
It's a good question. Click it. See what happens.
Yeah,
I don't know
have
it,
no
dude.
idea.
I don't. That sounds like a Jewish surname, does it not?
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
It's definitely German.
The prevailing theory I've seen is that she was actually a honeypot for Charlie. Kind of meant.
Well, that's
to,
what they say about old Cash Patel, right?
Right. So, I mean, it would make sense. Have no idea.
There's 20 people in the entire world. They all live in the United States with that surname, folks.
It's
Wow.
Scandinavian.
Huh.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to do more work on that genealogy.
20 people? Are you kidding me?
20 people, sir.
Have that. Wow.
That is wild.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying that it's basically the France, FRANTZ part of Germanic Scandinavian.
Oh, the old Frenchies, huh?
Yeah, interesting.
Right.
That would make a lot of sense. I mean, she does kind of look. Huh. But 20 people, man, that's something. For somebody with such a common name like myself, Johnson,
yeah, I'm not one to speak either, right?
Right.
Speaking of French folks, we got a French Protestant. I'm sorry, an American Pope of French Protestant origins.
Right.
With kinfolk in the Society of the Cincinnati French chapter.
Jeez.
We live in interesting times here, folks, in Muppet World 2025. So he's a Prevost, also part of that same Prevost family, Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer. So we wonder how he's able to traverse America, go under assumed identities at a summer camp in New Hampshire, then get on TV. Meanwhile, all Merkin folks the entire decade in the 70s. Well, maybe it's because of who his daddy is and what did he do? So his daddy's daddy was the mayor of San Antonio, Rodney's grandfather. Rodney's great-grandfather was one of the first Texas Rangers. And he's of the Burquot family. And Prevost, the Pope, is also of the same Burquot family. So the Society of the Cincinnati French chapter gets thrown out of France in 1794. They all come to America for the most part. And they set up their headquarters out of their city of New Orleans, which they'd already, established, basically. They were in league with some of the Spanish folk down there at the time, but would later then be their main ownership of that town, obviously. But nonetheless, if you know a French name, it's likely because they're they're a prominent family in America. What I'm getting at here with Charlie Kirk's wife, if she is of that French name origins or even some Swedish stuff there, probably a society family. The LaBeoufs, Shia LaBeouf, society family.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
The DuPonts, society family.
Right.
Yeah.
Napoleon Bonaparte, Charles Bonaparte, alleged grandnephew of Napoleon, I would argue might actually be his grandson. He founded the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigations. So we see when I see a French name, I'm like, the Kill Bill sirens in my brain will go off regarding these matters.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, though. I mean, and that kind of leads a lot of credence to the program to kill narrative as far as Rodney goes, because I mean, these are all the people that end up getting targeted are always people of affluent family, or they have some sort of outstanding, something outstanding about them, which is why I'm definitely questioning about this Tyler Robinson kid. I totally believe he had a 4.0 GPA all the way through school, and that was probably one of the reasons he was targeted.
Did you hear that he had spent basically 1 semester in college? Did you hear about this?
Yes, at the U of U, which is a very well-known MK Ultra school.
Which has
So-
Skull and Bones there.
Yes, which
Um,
we have the only other version of the Skull and Bones here, and it's called the Owl and Key.
And who is his daddy and what does he do? I haven't gotten too far into it, but his daddy's daddy was born and died in Kanab, Utah. Now, my understanding,
Oh, really?
I don't know for a fact this is the same Robinsons, but my understanding,
Right.
I've done a lot of Mormon genealogy over the years, and I have a friend in Robinson, Air Force military police officer I was friends with. James Robinson's his name, great guy. Nothing negative to say about him or his family. I'm just saying, I tracked some of those Robinsons. They joined in Nauvoo, Illinois. They were from Springfield, so they were part of the Joseph Smith incarnation, which I
Right.
do argue is different. Even though folks follow Brigham Young out there, I do think he had a different mission set, perhaps, than old Joseph did.
I actually agree with
100%.
that. Actually,
He did a
agree with that.
reformation. Yeah, he did a reformation. Joseph's, church was a mystical, magical mystery school. And Brigham's is a little bit of that, more Freemason, more straight laced. Let's make some money, baby.
And I take that back 1 second. The Robinsons I was referring to were not of Springfield. They were actually from Kirtland. My apologies. They migrated to Independence, Missouri before they went to Nauvoo. And largely, most of them stayed in and around Independence. There's a large pocket of Robinsons in Kansas City. Just
Interesting.
40 an hour
I
from
do know
Independence.
that there was the last I saw, somebody made a connection to a Robinson that was employed by Hill Air Force Base. That was supposedly Tyler's uncle, and I never saw anything more about that. See if it was actually confirmed or not. But
I looked into it, sir, if I may. I don't think that is family. When we're dealing with these Mormon families, it's like trying to find again, they're all, there's so many Lymans, for example, Phil Lyman,
Right.
that congressman.
Right.
One of my closest friends in the church growing up, Boy Scouts and etc., was Lyman, and his sister is a staffer for the congressman out of Cincinnati today. So we see the power these folks wield even outside the state
Right.
of Utah. So the Mormon ward I grew up in Cincinnati is, from the ages of 10 through 17 there.
right.
We had Lymans. Y'all are going to recognize these names. We had Lymans. We had Bennett's. Bob Bennett's nephew was my bishop. We had Steeles. They're coming up a lot in this narrative around the Kirk situation. We got Steeles up there in the north end and the south end. I bet they're family. My assessment there. So that's what I'm saying. When we start looking at these matters of the Robinsons in Utah, there's a lot of Robinson Mormons in Utah.
Right. Yeah, it's
We
like a
also-
needle in a haystack.
Absolutely. And I'm trying to think of some of the other founding families we had we had the Spragues. You all probably recognize that one. I had a Joseph Smith descendant in my ward. My Boy Scout troop leader's wife was a Joseph Smith descendant. So, I often wonder, why are all of these founding families of Mormonism finding themselves in the operational headquarters of the Society of Cincinnati in Cincinnati, Ohio, right? And a lot of these folks in that ward, I can't think if it's any of the ones of the founding family. Oh, the Hollands. The Hollands, that was another one. We had a paternal descendants of the Hollands. That was a first counselor to Joseph Smith as well.
Did you ever have any Homers come up?
Homers. No. But one thing I found interesting as well, I noticed though, is some of these folks, including one of that Sprague fellow was one of them.
Yeah.
They were the personal employees, pilots, CPAs, attorneys of Carl
Right.
Linder, the 33rd degree Freemason. So speaking of Howard Hughes and his activities, Carl Linder, super spooked up, Chiquita Banana, United Fruit, CIA operations in South
Yeah.
America, 33rd degree Freemason, friends with Michael Milliken, the junk bond guy and all that business. So he basically his family still owns Cincinnati, in my opinion. They live on a mound in Indian Hill, one of the wealthiest zip codes in America. But yeah, he would employ nothing but Mormons like Howard Hughes. I always found that interesting.
Right. Well, and that's who took over for Howard Hughes, right? It's that group of Mormons after he
Gay.
disappeared.
Bill Gay.
You're talking
Bill
Heidi's
Gay-
language, sir. You are talking
Mhm.
Heidi's language right there.
Yeah, Bill Gay took over because Howard Hughes had pushed Nixon, and this is part of why, he owned him. Basically, he pushed
Right.
him to put everything under his medical center, the Howard Hughes Medical Center, and Bill Gay took that over, and he ran it until he died, basically. And that family is still very important to this day. And since I spoke to you last, Heather Gay, who is one of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, her dad, I just found stuff on him. He's a Fed, FBI. And then he retires and becomes a teacher. And what does he do? He's over like the special kid program, like where they're gifted. He's recruiting at the school. Literally, you can see it. And they just like let it go. So I'm like, oh, that's fun.
Interesting.
One more note here on Linder. This is the guy that would have his hand up both George Bush #1 and George Bush #2's butt to make their mouth move.
Right.
He was their biggest mega donor guy. So like I had to do a lot. When I was Air Force Security Forces, the military police, we do a lot of augmentee duties. I did a lot of them with Secret Service, and I was stationed right Patterson Air Force Base during the 2004 election cycle. And that motherfucker, George Bush #2, would always be landing his plane there and doing and going down to Carl Linder's house for all sorts of meetings. I was like, what is going on in life? I didn't know a lot of these details back then. Didn't really understand the context. I didn't like it. It was certainly impeding on my normal schedules. Having to do extra duties and whatnot. But it gave me an insight to really, I think, how things operate. Because what is Carl Linder doing so involved in politics? Is again, the man's super spooked up. He's very much like Howard Hughes. They're cut from the same cloth. Now Linder's not a Society of Cincinnati guy, although Howard Hughes was.
Oh yeah,
right.
Howard. I found something.
Maryland chapter, right, ma'am? Maryland chapter.
Since I spoke to you, I found some really weird connection on accident. So I was doing a show with this guy, and we were talking about the Golden Bough, and he's talking about oak worship, and I was like, yeah, these people have canes. The canes that were in the black sticks are oak. And, Jupiter, all the connections with Jupiter and the Golden Bough, and Joseph Smith's, day he was born is actually on the first day of the festival for Jupiter. But also it explains in the King's chapter, it says that the kings can't cut their hair or their nails, nor can their feet touch the ground. What did Howard Hughes do? He put tissue boxes on his feet, and he had long hair, long nails, and you're supposed to go steal them. Like the only way these kings can have their hair cut or their nails done is if their aides go steal them while they sleep. But Howard never slept. And so we know this. And I very much think that Howard was MK Ultra'd into some weird Golden Bough stuff.
He's born into it, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Right?
Yeah, I think so.
So
people aren't given a choice, right?
Do you think that's why he disappeared? Or because I've heard other theories like
this book,
Onassis took over.
Yes. This is, you're talking about the Gemstone File and Project Seek. I will tell you that honestly, I find it fascinating. I think that there's something to be said there. A lot of people will poo-poo it, but as we've proven, George de Mohrenschildt was Jackie's writing coach. She called him Uncle George. And you can't tell me that all of the people that were completely surrounding JFK were, for some reason, in on it, right? Like even inadvertently, like Dulas's girlfriend is, the mom of Ruth Payne. Her name is also Ruth Payne. So her son is working over at Bell Helicopter because her husband is the inventor of Bell Helicopter. This is like a twisted web we weave. And all of this goes back to what? Aliens. I've never cared about aliens ever. And then I was like, what in the hell is happening here? But Onassis definitely took everything over. And all of funny thing you can verify is all of the people that worked for Howard went to work for Onassis directly after.
Right. So do you believe that there's any validity to the theory that it was like a beating gone wrong and they basically made him brain dead?
So there's one specific guy that it was kind of in charge of this, and he's definitely a Fed. Why can't I think of his name right now? You can't hardly find anything on him. I'll think of it in a second.
Oh, is it the guy that worked for Larry Flint after?
No, he went to work for Onassis and then became like
that?
big into government. Why can't I think of his name right now?
Who worked for Larry Flint?
So there was a man that worked for Onassis and then ended up working for Larry Flint later on, and I
think
can't
you're
remember his
talking
name.
about John.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember his last name. John.
I can't either. I'll
I'm
pull
on
it
it,
up.
sir. I'm on it. I'm on it.
I'm like, it's
But
John.
yeah,
They called him Johnny.
Yeah, this is why Larry Flint started coming out with all those like insane and not insane, but like at the time they were portrayed as insane, like conspiracy reports back in the 80s and stuff.
That article
Because
was actually true. Yeah, that he printed.
Right. And he started doing a conspiracy magazine. It only got 4 releases, and I'm trying to get my hands on any of them.
Wow.
Well, you'll have to bring me up to speed on that. I can't find that. But if I may add some additional context to these matters. So Howard Hughes is likely the hereditary descendant of this fellow from the Maryland chapter of the Society of Cincinnati, prominent figure in American history. And if we consider that Aristotle Onassis was the father of JFK Jr., which Heidi makes some great points. Let me bring up a picture. Then we consider that JFK Jr. was born into the Maryland chapter. Right. So we start looking at things, and maybe there's a lot of Society of Cincinnati stuff going on here, specifically within that Maryland chapter, perhaps around the Hughes situation, because Aristotle Onassis allegedly kidnaps Howard Hughes there and steals all his wealth. And Onassis is the basis for that James Bond villain, Ernesto Blofeld, Ernst Stavros Blofeld. Ian Fleming based him off of Onassis, like he based Le Chiffre off of Aleister Crowley. So, and Stavros Blofeld there is the leader of this international gangsters of Spectre, right? This international organized crime faction. So if we kind of mash those ideas together, we're starting to look at a different picture here. And then we look at the whole JFK thing, and we see JFK, member of the Society of Cincinnati by virtue of being president, honorary member. His son, member, obviously. His father-in-law was a member before he died in 1957. And then we got Lee Harvey Oswald.
Right.
His second great grandfather, Major Joseph Oswald of the Georgia chapter of the Society of Cincinnati. So when we look at that situation, we see a lot of society stuff. J. Edgar Hoover, honorary member of the New York chapter of Society of Cincinnati from 1946 forward. So
well, United Fruit comes up again with this whole situation because Mary Carter Paint Company goes into United Fruit, and United Fruit goes into the Xanadu where he was staying, and then the Xanadu situation. And this guy that I don't know why I can't remember his name right now. It's irritating me, but he's all a part of this. And then he ends up leaving that and becoming like head of state, something like a big important political guy. And so, but we know that Trump, was even part of this. I mean,
well, he gets the whole United Paint or Mary Carter Paint, United Fruit, Meyer Lansky blackmail network, right? Through the Resorts International.
He ends up being Resorts International and then opening up the Atlantis Hotel. Don't tell me these people don't know mystery school stuff. Get out of here with that.
Right.
And, why he's doing, they say the Glomar Explorer, but what did they really call this? Project Azorion. And what do we know about the Azores? We know that Steiner had a lot to say about it. I'll tell you that much right now.
And what was this? This is the Glomar incident. So this is where we get the term, we cannot confirm nor deny the Glomar response. And this was a Howard Hughes vessel. And Bill Colby, RR channel, this one's for you, bud. Bill Colby was out there on that ship as well in this whole mission. So there you go, bud. RR channel is my favorite AI CIA bot, Bill Colby ball washer. I could not be as wrong as him even if I tried. But here we go. He's trying to say that Onassis is not Junior's dad. So
might want to check the photos. I'm just saying.
Might want to check that scoreboard there, RR.
The photos are very interesting when you have a very Irish white guy and he has the brownest, Greekest kid you've ever seen who looks just like Alexander Onassis, which would be Onassis's actual kid that we know of. And we also know that he and Jackie had definitely a relationship before the assassination. And she was on the boat on the Christina. There are photos of them being ever so close.
And that's my main point right there, ma'am. Operation GCD, garbage can dude. But I also like to call it greatest common denominator because that's the way I look at things. And the greatest common denominator there is Jackie and Aristotle had a pre-existing relationship.
Yeah,
And then
apparently
you
there
shit
was a
out
phone
child
call.
looks just like Aristotle Onassis. You're gonna tell me he's Black Irish? Get out of town.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Apparently there was a phone call from JFK. You know, it was right after the attempted Chicago hit, when Jackie was on his boat, and you know, he threatened Onassis and said, you know, you harm any hair on her head, and apparently that didn't go over well. So, you know, who knows? But I
Well, I
find
think
it
we're
kind of
looking at a
interesting.
situation where we're sold these narratives. There's a young Jackie and Aristotle right there. You can almost see a JFK, young JFK there going on.
Right.
And again, this is their dating history. This is People Magazine talking about their dating history. You know, again, that precedes the birth of JFK Jr. And again, you see his mom sitting next to him. You're like, oh, that's a young Aristotle.
I
You know
think
what I mean?
I think I have the photo.
Yeah, if you have that one comparison photo, that'd be great.
Yep, I'm gonna do it. Hold on.
Because I can't find it, man. But it is an interesting topic. I do like to bring it up because it is, coalesces a lot of these things, and a lot of this conspiracy culture we talk about goes back to that whole Bay of Pigs thing, right? As old
Lots
Tricks
you
Dick
have
would
it.
say. And my point with a lot of this thing of who is your daddy, what does he do? It's never a plumber, never an electrician. No, my daddy's a truck driver. No, never the case. Well, it seems relevant because what my general overall meta aspect of that, facetious little, smart ass joke I do there, is we're sold a narrative that is false. We know that. We don't know the actual circumstances of reality behind those false narratives, but we see a fellow like JFK here, his private school child roommate from private school, lifelong friend who had a room at the White House.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
And he looks super straight, right? Okay, so I want to show people this photo.
Heidi, they're just good friends. They're just good
right,
friends.
right. And that's it. So look at the hairline, you guys. If anything, look at this hairline.
Look at the loving gaze they have in their eye. And I'm not being a smartass. GAZE.
Oh,
is what I'm
you
saying.
still have. I can't see. Let me know when.
Oh well, yeah. I'll
can
bring
you
up
see?
yours in a second. Hold on.
Yeah, you're
I
good. Just let me know.
I want everyone to soak in the JFK. I'm not saying he was. I'm just saying that he obviously put his. I think he liked any hole he could find. If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've had some pretty good friends in my day, but I've never quite
looked that lovingly,
You
right?
didn't do that. You didn't do
I
that.
got a lot of dudes like
Prom?
I would describe as my brothers, but I'm not looking at them like that. I'm not holding hands. You know what I mean?
All right. Here's this photo. Let's see.
Ooh.
I don't know. I pushed share. So can you guys see it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay, this is Aristotle Onassis. If you want to look at this hairline right here and this hairline right here, if you want to look at, this is my favorite piece. Look at this diamond shaped lip right here. Oh, look, we have it there too. Dang. And then, we've obviously got Jackie in the mix, but this nose is a dead ringer. Like, look at how this bridge is. Look at how this bridge is.
No kidding.
Yeah, the lip, the bottom lip. It's just hard to say there, but I can see a lot of resemblance where it shouldn't be.
Right.
They shouldn't have
yeah,
any.
and again, is that an Irishman? I mean, I'm not black Irish, but they don't look like an Irishman.
Yeah, and he always was so dark that people were like, "Oh yeah, what's going on there?" And I'm gonna try and see if I had one of Alexander, because that's a big piece. If I don't think I do. But his other son, I've literally been showing pictures to people before, and they're like, "Oh, that's JFK Jr., right?" And I'm like, "No." So that's an issue. So, and I did have my husband bring the folder because I couldn't leave you guys hanging. James O. Golden is the man that allegedly kidnapped Howard Hughes. And he was a special agent for the White House, U.S. Secret Service, Dwight Eisenhower and Nixon. And there's very little on this man. And so James O. Golden, founder of Intertel Spy Agency, just FYI, guys. And he was the private security on Paradise Island. So, yeah, like these things are very interesting when we're looking at all of these little connects like we've been doing tonight,
Right.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Nobody goes far enough back because it's all
on Wednesday
dead and
we're going to be
gone.
talking about JFK Jr.'s daddy and Aleister Crowley here, the guy on the right. Let's shift from James Bond and Aleister Crowley, the guy, or I'm sorry, Aristotle Onassis, Blowfield on the left there, and that'll be Wednesday night. Folks can check that out because again, this is very James Bond-esque what we're talking about, right? In fact, JFK filmed his own assassination 2 months prior.
And James O. Golden also became the resort's VP for the whole situation for that company for a while. So just so people know.
Now, how weird is this, though, that JFK would film his own assassination using the same team of Secret Service that were on ground in Dallas that day? His wife, the photographer, Jackie, would be the director of the film. And it's mentioned here and finally released just not that long ago. And Ryder Lee was the one who brought it to my attention. He did a JFKX film, which draws into question the fabricated stagecraft of the Zapruder film.
Right.
So was it filmed at the same time here? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen
makes one
3
wonder.
different versions of the Zapruder film. You know, I've seen them floating around for a while. Actually, not too long ago, there was a big push for the driver of the limo to be the assassin once again. I know that that's popped up over the last several decades. But
yeah, I've even seen one recently that Jackie pulled out a gun and shot him.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard that
But I'm
too.
telling
Yeah.
you, I challenge him and watch JFKX and tell me we're not seeing Hollywood stagecraft.
Right.
So, and on that
And
note, I would like to consider those
maybe he
aspects.
thought it was fake. Yeah. And then, maybe they did him dirty.
Well, I would say I would like to propose this option that not everyone works together in these matters, and that there's a lot of warring factions that are doing psyops against psyops, if you will. And I would argue that we probably saw that in Butler, PA last year with Donald Trump. Crooks, his dad. Who's his daddy? What does he do? Well, his forefather was either a Captain Crooks or his elder brother Colonel Crooks of the Pennsylvania chapter of the Society of the Cincinnati. So, not only that, what I'm saying here is that we're seeing these patterns of behavior of the society across all these major parapolitical events and assassinations and whatnot, and we can see that there's stagecraft present. All I'm saying is, sometimes maybe there's an assassination plan and the opposing faction wants to give them their assassination.
Right.
You know what I mean? Stagecraft style.
Right.
So, and on that note, I would like to table that thought here for another moment as I do this interruption.
I could have killed them all. I could have killed you. In town, you're the law. Out here, it's me. Don't push it. Don't push it, or I'll give you a war you won't believe. Let it go. Let it go.
John J. Rambo. No disrespect there, Jacob J, but I'm also not gonna let that motherfucker out, JJ me here. And when I say these matters of technically I am a Rambo, so I'm not a John J. Rambo, but I am a Rambo of this guy, one of the founding members of America here, Swedish style, into the nation, or what we now know as Pennsylvania and Delaware. So I'm certainly not going to let a family member of mine, John J. Rambo, out, JJ me. That's certainly not happening.
Nice.
But all these families stick together. All these founding families of America. It ain't just mine or Heidi's or Charlie Kirk's families. There's interlocking aspects of these things, and all U.S. presidents are related, with the exception of Martin Van Buren.
Right.
That commie bastard, part of the anti-liberty faction. His wife was part of the family. She was a Livingston of the New York chapter families. He was not related to that. I really don't know how he got in there, but he's not part of the family his wife is. But everyone else is. And I actually discovered that from a 13-year-old girl who did a school project about 15 years ago on the interwebs, posted a video on a local news report. I'm like, get the fuck. I was already doing genealogy at the time, and I was coming to a lot of those same conclusions that she had. And I was like, this is an eye-opening experience. She's going to help me out a lot with some of this research.
Yeah.
Yep. It's straight down. Well, people always say, okay, we came here for freedom of religion. Okay. Okay, true. They didn't say what religion, first of all. This is United States of Freemasonry. There's nothing that can make me think otherwise. There are darker factions, lighter factions, but it is that. And, some people forget that, Joseph hails from where? Massachusetts, not New York. And this is also witchcraft. And they were escaping the persecution in that area, like a lot of people were then. And I'm sorry, but this plays out like when you start looking at it with a fine tooth comb, it's more than Freemasonry, because Freemasons learn about magic, but they don't necessarily practice magic.
Right.
But Martinists, they practice magic. And, that's a practicing order of Solomonic magic. And what people want to call that? I mean, what's a person that practices magic? Wizard, maybe? Like, I don't know what you want to call it back then, but that's the truth. Yeah.
I think you're definitely spot on there, ma'am. I know I recently caught one of your shows on Solomonic magic, and I definitely enjoyed that one relative to these topics. And it is certainly a major factor in the establishment of freedom of religion. But all of these things go back to what we know as personal liberties and freedoms to the Magna Carta. As we see here in this genealogical project of this 7th grader who came to these conclusions there. And again, she did some great research, and I confirmed a lot of this stuff with some of my own genealogical research. But, George Washington's 10 of his forefathers, 14 through 17 great grandfather, 10 times, 10 different guys there, were the 10 of the 25 Knights Templar that brought us Magna Carta. So 560 plus years later, and their grandson, George, is bringing us Magna Carta 2.0, as historians call it, with the Bill of Rights. So there is a lot to these things, again, as far as the establishment of liberties and freedoms. And I do agree with you, Heidi. There is I don't necessarily, I'm a big proponent of liberties and freedoms. I think these two gentlemen are from our previous discussions. I won't speak for them, but they also have big fans of these things. And I think, I don't know, I'd like to hear your all's thoughts on this notion of liberty, that one man's liberty is another man's, disaster.
Well, that
is kind of the concept of liberty. You
right?
Yeah, I mean, like, what I'm saying is, like, people want to say, like, oh, I'm all for liberty, but then they're like, oh, well, then there's the in regards to the way America was founded, you have the Puritans, and then the folks who they didn't like, who they thought were radicals, they all left the Massachusetts Bay Colony and started Rhode Island. So then we have the Rhode Island chapter of the Society of the Cincinnati. It's all rooted in those families. So we can kind of see those factional divides there in regards to liberty, but there's always a sliding scale when it comes to liberty. And I will be the first to say that I have my limitations on liberties as well, what I would call liberties. But that being said, in regards to ceremonial magic, I'm simply not a fan across the board. So I recognize that is liberty. I don't have to like it.
They're still patriotic, because we know that Joseph's family are Captain Samuel Smith. Like, we know they're involved in all of these things, and they're 100% involved in what you're talking about. Well,
they're an offshoot of the society, right, man? We see Joseph Smith's grandfather, Massachusetts chapter. He probably knew Bill Colby's forefather, who was Massachusetts chapter, who probably knew Jack Parsons, OTO Agape Lodge, his forefather, Captain Parsons, Massachusetts chapter of the Society of Cincinnati. But we see the basis of the theological basis and philosophical basis of the Mormon, worldview is rooted in Society of Cincinnati stuff. We got the help me out. What was homeboy's name from New Hampshire?
Rigdon, Sidney Rigdon.
Oh, thank you. No, that was his buddy though. No, the Spalding manuscript. There we go. Thank you. But no, I usually do forget Rigdon's name. I forgot Spalding's name this time though, right? Because you found that Spalding actually comes back up with the Smith family up there, and we see the Spalding manuscript serves as a basis for the Book of Mormon.
Which I say is a different story than most people say. Most people say Joseph ripped it off from him, but they all went to the same college. Joseph didn't, of course, but his brother certainly did. And he was sick, and his brother took some time off to help Joseph and help nurse him back to health. What are you going to do with a kid that's that age, that's sick? You're going to read him some books. But they all learned underneath Professor John Smith. And they say he's not related, but he is. He's on the grandparents' side. He's a distant cousin, but actually on both sides. So, I mean, people can say what they want. This guy was completely teaching them theology, and all of these students learned underneath, including Solomon.
And in our previous discussions, you brought to my attention as well on these matters that Spalding's connections, and I dove further into who his daddy was and what did he do. And sure as shit, it was Solomon Spalding himself, not his daddy, that served in the Revolution out of New Hampshire as a lieutenant. So therefore, Society of the Cincinnati. So time and time again, we see those same connections there. And then another society connection as far as the basis goes. Jacob J., are you familiar with any of these aspects of what we're talking about as far as the Spalding manuscript? Or
I am not. This is way further back than I've gone.
Oh, this is what Heidi and I love to discuss here when we convene.
We like to talk about all of the things that people say they figured it out, and then I'm like, nope, goes way more than that.
Absolutely, because we've even discovered a lot of new things just looking into these things further in recent months.
Right.
But Elias Boudinot, founding father, Society of Cincinnati, he wrote a book called A Star in the West in 1818, which would be the fundamental basis for Joseph Smith's theories and thoughts of the lost tribes of Israel.
Interesting.
Yep.
And Boudinot was a major figure. He was an intelligence officer and George's, spy apparatus. If folks want to learn more about George's spy apparatus, I've been doing a series on that on Operation GCD called Chasing Menier, with one of George Washington's spies' descendants. My dude, Brad Minyard, a.k.a. The descendant of a fellow by the name of Joseph Minyard, Joseph Menier. He posed as a Frenchman following around the Aaron Burr conspiracy, that anti-liberty faction of the Society of Cincinnati that popped off in 1804 after we got all that new land in the Louisiana Purchase, another society land deal, Napoleon Bonaparte Society of Cincinnati there. But we see that land claim was actually a Knights Templar land claim from 1362 was what we got in the Louisiana Purchase. And again, these are all Templar descendants. So we see these things going on over time in a much larger tale. But my point being there regarding these matters in that spy apparatus, folks can check that out with a descendant from one of those spies. And his forefather, Joseph Minyard, knew Abner Vance. They were both, we've now tracked them both to Rowan County, North Carolina in 1781. And guess who else was there? George Washington. So I'm pretty sure he was just visiting his son Abner, but these things happen. So, and it was actually the chief spy recruiter for George Washington, a guy by the name of Captain William Rickard, out of the Massachusetts chapter of the Society of Cincinnati, stationed down there in the Cherokee forefront of the West and North Carolina, Virginia regions now. And he recruited Brad Minyard's forefather, and he knew Abner Vance, and Captain Rickard would be the Masonic. He would give the Masonic funeral rites at George Washington's funeral. And it was as a result of that one article. There was two. When I say anti-liberty faction, and this started from day one, I do mean it. There was two articles that published George Washington's funeral. Two newspapers in America published the president's death, and then one of the two mentions Captain Rickard, the Masonic funeral rites, and he was a member of the Society of the Cincinnati. And it was that article that caused Brad Minyard to contact me once he started looking into the Society of the Cincinnati. But folks can check that out around these matters of spy networks that, again, I don't have a membership card or a badge or anything, but according to all legends, Abner Vance served as a spy and a scout for George Washington. And the evidence suggests that when I find him with Daniel Boone in Rowan County, along with the chief spy, Captain Rickard, and this whole apparatus following around the Burr conspiracy before and after. So it is interesting when we look at these things, and Elias Boudinot was a big part of that. And then again, that's where the Mormons. So when we see what I'm getting at there is, I think y'all agree, the Mormons are big into the spook operations.
Absolutely.
And, we see where they get their onset. The society. We see this guy's a major figure in the onset of the spook operations in this country. So look no further, I would say.
And the Templars are extremely important. For those that don't know, the Mormon Templar connection is gigantic. So,
well, again, ma'am, Society of Cincinnati offshoot. So there we go. We see that.
Yep.
We see the hierarchy there. We see the chronology of events. But on the notion of liberty and these Mormons in their nation of Deseret, what are your all's thoughts? Because again, I mean, I'll go ahead and foremost say I'm ardently opposed to ancient alien cargo cults. I'm not sure if y'all heard it in the theme song. They haunt the pale moonbeams. So they've caused a lot of problem in America, you ask me, and they're in these concepts they try to force on society at large and their ancient alien cargo cult ideals.
Right.
So, while I recognize liberty and I'm happy to let that be such, it's those moments when they start forcing that upon other people that I no longer call liberty, even if they try to themselves.
Right.
I mean,
Well, let's start
if
with you,
somebody's
ma'am.
choosing
Yes,
your
ma'am.
underwear for you, is that really freedom? I don't know.
That I knew you'd have a great response. That is an
Right.
an excellent retort. And
Yes,
speaking of magic underwear, I still own mine. I didn't officially I quit going. I quiet quit. But
Quiet
I
quit.
often joke that my Mormon underwear protects me from most knife attacks, most gunfire, and some nuclear blasts. So
Mine are definitely not anywhere. Yeah, no, I'm out on that.
Might want to have a pair on deck. Now, I used to joke around
yeah.
as I was deployed with a bunch of folks, a bunch of Mormon, out of Salt Lake City. I got deployed to Iraqistan with the Mormon Security Forces unit out of SLC Airport there, the National Guard unit. And, I used to, they enjoyed they all called me the Exmo. So they enjoyed my Mormon humor. Most of them did, but I would often joke about the underwear business. But yeah,
That's
so
funny.
and that was a great, now I know, I really appreciate that was a great response. But what, on, and on above that, though, you live in the city, you live in the nation of Deseret, you and Jacob J. both. So you have some interesting viewpoints, I'm sure.
The freedom here is different than it would be, I think, almost anywhere else. I mean, we all know that this is ran by Mormons, whether they say it is or isn't. And even the ones that don't appear to be Mormons, we look a little bit deeper and they are pseudo Mormons or Society of Cincinnati, or their brothers somehow, some way. And I think that makes it really hard to be here as a person that not just is a quiet leaver. I'm not a quiet leaver. I'm a noisy person that, is annoying about this because I don't feel like they tell the truth. My problem isn't with the Mormons. My problem's with the truth. My problem is they're initiating people into Mystery Babylon and they have zero idea what they're doing. And I just think that's wrong. Yeah. I think you should have the right to know. Even if you're going to pledge to be a Freemason or something, you've heard the stories like, oh, you're going to be hoodwinked. Oh, you don't get any of that when you're going to be a Mormon and go through the temple. So, I think it's unfair, and I think they're using people. And I actually heard just recently that they changed the temple ceremony down to an hour long. You no longer have to memorize anything, and it's all done on cards for you. Why would they do that? Because that is not for you anymore. Now they're not even bothering to initiate the uninitiated. They're just using you for a cover. You are the porch masons. I call them porch Mormons at this point, so that they can blend right on Thursday when they go do their woo woo whatever at the Thursday temple thing. It looks normal because everybody's there every other day too.
You guys do Thursdays? I didn't get the
No,
newsletter.
I don't know. I just picked today. But
obviously, when I hear stories about Scientology, I see a lot of similarities because I remember going to church almost every day of the week.
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
Between Boy Scouts, youth functions, volunteer work, church,
visiting teaching, priesthood meeting, you guys call it something else.
General slave labor. I had a lot of that going on.
Gosh. Oh yeah. And so for all of that, I feel like honesty would be good. Like my problem isn't about the Mormons or what they do. Hey, knock yourselves out. You want to be a magical woo-woo Harry Potter deal? Do it, but quit lying to people. Like that's a good idea, because then people like me get pissed off. I'm like the girlfriend that you lied to, and now I won't go away. So
but it's not liberty. If you're lying to folks and trying to force stuff on them, that is not liberty. That's what I'm saying. Even if you try to espouse it as liberty, it's not.
It's control. It's control. Everything is controlled here, and everything is controlled in that religion. And if people want to be there and be controlled by their own choice, good. Quit doing it to babies straight out of the womb. Like let's chill out a little bit, And that's with any religion. I get that. I don't belong to religion anymore. I don't like religion. My heart belongs to Jesus, but like religion is not the thing, because we all know sitting here right now, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and it always does. And that's my little soapbox on it.
Yeah, so my issue.
Thank you, man. That's some great comments. And yes, sir, I would you're a man of formerly of a libertarian party and lots of ideas on liberty, generally speaking, and you live in the nation of Deseret, sir.
Yeah, so
watch actually, your six. There's laser beams everywhere.
I'm still technically involved with the Libertarian Party. I actually run communications for him. But I'm definitely not.
I did not know that. I did not know that, sir.
Yes.
And you're if I may, you're up there doing a lot of moving and shaking, if you will, as far as coordinating
Yes.
some of these efforts, then, right? Because I remember, if I remember correctly, on your show, I joined you for that 4th anniversary show of the Rise
Yes,
to
sir.
Liberty. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. I appreciated the invite, but I met a fellow over there by the name of, I believe, Toad, who was a
Yep.
candidate, right, in the
Yeah,
Libertarian Party.
Toad was a candidate. He was running for president for the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, you all were describing like some circumstances where he was involved in an actual debate.
Oh yeah. He actually went to several different debates across the country and absolutely killed it. He was the best candidate ever. You know, the last time Libertarians ran a candidate, you know, the comedian Dave Smith was actually slotted to be the presidential candidate to go up against Trump and everything. And you know, there was a lot of people in his corner that were excited for that. He ended up not doing it, which I totally don't blame him. You know, it seemed like the overall feeling in the party was that everyone was ungrateful, and you know, I'm not going to put my entire life on the line and tell everybody, you know, in my family, hold on, I've got to go run for a party that doesn't even appreciate me. So, you know, it was
That's
just
a great point, because didn't they elect a gay furry as their presidential candidate?
yeah, pretty much.
Ah,
I mean, he
right.
he wasn't a
Again, not
furry,
exactly
as
what I
far
would
as
call
know,
liberty.
but-
These are not the values I would fight for. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, that's
Right.
great, but not gay furriness. You know what I mean?
Right. And so the problem with with the Libertarian Party largely is that it's not a left-wing ideology, at least in any sense of the definition of the modern left versus right. You know, it's more traditional left, a more traditional liberal, but that's nowhere near the current definition of right versus
Nope.
left today. So by today's standards, it would be way more of a far right ideology. But I mean, as far as like here in Utah, I mean, it's interesting. The church definitely does control things, but it's the same thing as you know, the Catholic Church in Boston, you know. So
Is it?
it's not, well, I mean, they have a major presence over there, so
I know.
I mean,
I just feel like
who
I mean,
else?
you're not wrong, sir. You're not wrong. I'm not trying. Yeah,
Right.
it's a great point. But what I'm saying is, it almost seems even more darker.
I would say so, but I think that's
And don't
kind
get
of
me wrong. I'm not a
unique
fan of the
to
Vatican,
our,
sir. Don't get me wrong. I'm
right,
not,
right. I think that's more of a geographical thing, because you know, this was where the Mormons settled and everything. But
But
my
they settled it under the
issue,
pretense that this is a new nation. This is not America.
right,
And I don't think
right,
they want it to be America. I think a lot of these folks we see pop off, everyone around that Idaho 4 situation, including the University of Idaho President Scott Green, they
right,
all came here to Deseret. Their Mormon ancestors wagon trained to Deseret.
yep,
They did not come to America.
right,
Carrie Thornley, well, I would argue the Discordian Society is an offshoot of the Process Church, and they have an epicenter of activity in New Orleans at the same time.
right,
So that's a strong argument to be made there. But his whole family is British pioneering Mormons under the guise of
right.
Deseret and Brigham Young. So have they always hated America? Have they passed it down to their descendants?
I mean, that's a really good question. I've never
And
really
that's what I
thought
mean by
about it,
darker, sir.
but-
I do agree with you, the stranglehold, but I'm saying it seems a bit darker.
right. It's so, at least from my understanding, I mean, they were being persecuted, and so would you really want to be a part of a nation being built where you are persecuted? So they went off on their own, and they settled their own area. So I mean, they're totally able to start their own area. And personally, I believe that once they got out here, you know, there was a meeting between the Mormon militia and the U.S. military.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of when the deal was struck. You know, you do as we say, you join forces with us, or we're going to wipe you out, kind of a thing. And their back was kind of against the wall, so they did it. And that's kind of where we see ourselves today, is that agreement. But that, I mean, that's ultimately my issue with the church, is the leadership. I have less issue with the members. Like the members, I have really no issue with. Even the what I consider to be Molly Mormons, which are like the stereotypical, super judgy, The ones usually converts that are trying to play catch up or whatever, like those are who I call Molly Mormons.
Well, you make some great points, sir. And when you say about these meetings, I would argue that P. Thomas has a great point here as well. So Brigham Young calls his first order of business in his new nation of Deseret is to call the James Bond of the 19th century, MI6's UK secret agent guy, to come meet with him.
Right.
I would argue this is the British invasion. That's why we see the Process Church, I would argue, is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Quorum of the 70, as per the Process Church's own corporate records.
Quorum of the 50, more likely. If this,
well, that's probably the secret one, right? They put it on paper though as a 70, I think, ma'am, and we do see that in the Process Church corporate paperwork. Quorum of the 70 is a hierarchical guiding order of their corporation. They just don't tell us who it is. So I argue they're in the nation of Utah, or the nation of Deseret, state of Utah. They file domestic corporate documents there. Well, then they're talking about the Quorum of the 70 within that state. That is the Mormons. Right. So this is the British invasion.
They're running away. Okay, like we're running for our lives and we want to be left alone. Also, please let me help you finish the railroad. It's hard.
Well, I'm glad you said that, ma'am. Let me answer my favorite AI, CIA, Bill Colby ball washer, CIA AI bot here on our channel. America Vespucci is the Vatican propaganda about the source of the term America. America is the Society of the Cincinnati's goddess, Liberty. Right. Lady Liberty, Columbia. They named her America. They've mashed together a bunch of different goddesses, Hecate, Diana, Athena, etc. You can see this in the tapestry and paintings of their headquarters in Washington, D.C. All of these things are represented. But this is the nonsense we live under of the crown history. America Vespucci, it's ridiculous. But I like where your brain hole's at, ma'am. So Jean Baptiste Charbonneau was the son of Lewis and Clark's guide.
Yeah,
and Sacagawea was his mother. So, and it's thanks to this individual right here of why the Mormons succeeded and why America succeeded.
Right.
So he was their guide for the Mormons going west. He fought with that Mormon militia you're talking about in the Mexican-American War. We won the Mexican-American War thanks to the Mormons. We won the Civil War thanks to the Mormons. And those damn Lee boys. I got a real problem with them Lee boys for many reasons, but one of which is they were being backed by globalist interests of an anti-liberty varieties. And we see that same family manifesting within the Mormon church in a very powerful way. You may be familiar with current congressional Muppet from Utah, Mike Lee.
Oh, yes. Very familiar.
Descendant of the same Lee boys. Brother of Robert E. Lee, I believe, or I'm sorry, maybe he was first cousin. I'll get back to you on that. Same Lee family. We see all of these men. So we see the same family. They had a U.S. Senator of Utah or Oregon, sir. B.T. Wallace, sir. His first cousin was there in Oregon at the same time. Arizona, Nevada. We see these Mormon Lee family ruling shit.
Right. Right. Well, and I mean, technically, you haven't even brought in Porter Rockwell into any of this. Well, I mean, you want to start getting into some interesting history. I mean, the Rockwell family.
We can dive there next. That's a great point, but we can also see the power here. The Lee family was the Solicitor General. The person that argued Supreme Court cases on behalf of the United States for Ronald Reagan was a member of this Lee family. Again, it's the same family. So it's the Udall Hunt Lee family.
Right. Right. Well, and I don't know about you guys, but this all makes sense to me because if they come out here to establish their new location, of course, they're going to want the Transcontinental Railroad to end here because then that actually gives them power over their new domain.
The sugar company. You got to look into the sugar company and then the Rotary Club and then, the John Birch Society and then it's all connected. They never ran from anything.
I would argue you are making some great points. These are the manifestations of that anti-liberty versus liberty factions of the Society of Cincinnati. And if you don't mind, ma'am, I'm just sharing a couple of those DMs I was sending you on this topic. So I got lost in a rabbit hole. And I spent about 3 hours. And I sent Heidi a couple messages. And again, it goes. Of course, it goes back to the Society of Cincinnati. So I started tracking them Lee boys, and sure as shit, who do I find? Captain Samuel Vance, Pennsylvania chapter of the Society of Cincinnati. In fact, they're deeply involved in that whole Lee Udall family, and they're deeply Mormons. In fact, one of those Mormons, I presume the hereditary member of that line from Captain Samuel Vance, that dude's wife was the records clerk for Latah County, Idaho for the last 27 years. She just recently retired.
Interesting.
So, talk
Is this
about
like
Muppet HQ.
Lee, as in you know, like
Robert E. Lee, yes, ma'am. Those sons of
Okay.
bitches.
So, you know, the Templars are involved with Robert E. Lee in Canada. This whole thing gets really weird, but they were actually involved. He went up to Canada and talked to them, like in my Templar episode, the Canadian one. It's very interesting what that guy had to say. And he lives in Canada, and said that he had come out and they were supposed to bring them in as a stay over it and everything. There was like mass support. It has a lot to do with a lot.
Oh, I think we're chiseling away over time here, man. Again, getting closer to the actual circumstances at hand. So we see these folks here. The Udalls came from England during Brigham Young, pioneering the Deseret. They settle in Kanab, Utah, the British invasion capital of Utah. Seems with the Hamblins as well, right? And again, we find Captain Samuel Vance, right? We find the Lee boys. I got a lot of problem with them Lee boys. You got a lot of beef. So I'm just saying there's a repeating pattern of behavior here. And this man right here, this Lee boy, was the forefather of those element of the Mormon Lee boys. And two of his plural wives were Samuel Vance's daughters. Daughter or granddaughter. One was I think he married a daughter and a granddaughter. I mean, you know, what's new, right?
Right.
Now, this guy was a major figure in the Mountain Meadows Massacre. And I'm sure Jacob J. and Heidi know precisely what I'm talking about.
Very familiar.
In regards to this. Can y'all provide the folks of the interwebs a quick backstory on this? And I don't know were you aware that Robert E. Lee's it's either his grandnephew or grandson, I gotta get back to you on that in a moment, was the main figure in this?
No.
I actually did not know that.
John D. Lee and his wife's of Clan Vance, not my Vance. So Captain Samuel Vance would on paper would be Abner Vance's first cousin. If Abner Vance was
interesting. Let's see, what does Wikipedia have to say about the Mountain
source
Meadows
of all information on the interweb, sir? The Mountain Meadows Massacre occurs September 7th to 11th, 1857. So this is in the years leading up to the Civil War. Again, the Mormons helped the Union win that against the Lee boys, who were part of the South. I'm just painting out the sides of this dispute.
Right.
So, and again, it's the same dispute we see manifest in the Civil War, which again, the Society of Cincinnati. So the South Carolina, if I may real quick, the South Carolina chapter of the Society of Cincinnati quits. They didn't quite quit either. They quit April of 1860. Then we see the Civil War start in April of 1861 in Charleston, South Carolina. So those things are not by coincidence.
I think it was Desert Rain said it did happen on September 11th. They give this weird little grouping of days. No, it was on September 11th.
Yeah.
Where the actual massacre part.
What went down here?
Okay, we've done this before with the Smiths and the Tea Party, but for a different reason this time. They, dressed up as Native Americans as well as involved Native Americans to go and basically assassinate this party, the Baker Fancher party that's going through. And all they wanted to do was go through. But there was rumor that there was a lot of people that found out they were pretty rich. And they killed as many people as they could, and they had the Native Americans kill any children that look like they might be a little bit young, because if you kill someone that's innocent, which the only people that are innocent that are not Mormon are children under the age of 8. So that's why they brought the Native Americans in with them, because they didn't want to lose their second anointing. That's literally why they're there. So
the anointing.
Yeah. That's the only thing that could make you really lose it, is killing an innocent and being apostate.
Right.
Yeah,
they don't like them,
me.
do they?
Yeah, don't be like me, right?
So isn't it interesting that, essentially this did occur on the anniversary of Charlie Kirk's dies on the anniversary of this event.
Correct.
Yep. Well, and that's why I didn't talk about this for 3 days at least, because they were charging the house with this. There are dark factions involved in certain things, and that was a very dark charged ritual that I refused to speak about for 3 days, other than I said to pray, because
No, that's a great point, ma'am. I'm glad you said that, because I think there's just too much speculation going on across the board on the topic.
Right.
So I don't know about you, but I kind of felt like with Erica Kirk, sharing those pictures from the funeral and everything, I totally felt that like that was
Feels a bit psyopy.
I felt like it was a humiliation ritual. Because, I mean, 3 days before the assassination happened, Jezebel, like a feminist, rag, came out and said that they paid some Etsy witches to curse Charlie
Oh,
Kirk.
I saw that. I
Right.
saw
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that was a thing.
And I agree. There's definitely some dark, unseen forces at play in all of this. And so
Agree.
her posting those pictures, and it wasn't just like posting the pictures, but it was the way in which they were framed, the way in which they were posted, the things everyone had to say about them. Like it just seemed like I won't say satanic necessarily, but it was a humiliation ritual. That
I'll say satanic. I mean, it was very dark and
Very dark.
We are never going to know the truth, because here's the problem with JFK and everything. Even the Zapruder films up for grabs on if it's real or not. With AI, we will never know what is real and what is not with these videos. Period.
I mean, did anyone find it weird that the algorithm allowed the murder video to just go wild?
Everywhere,
like a grass fire,
and then they didn't even take it down. They didn't even. They just put a warning, and that was disgusting. Like I
didn't even get a warning on mine.
Not at first.
It was wild. The first 2 days on my algorithm, it was everywhere.
I got no warnings. It was just right there. There was nothing, man. I don't like to see snuff films like unintentionally, for sure.
No, it messes people up, and that's exactly what they were aiming for, because September 11th is a little bit old, and I'm not saying it's outdated, but they gave you the new trauma. They just traumatized a bunch of kids too, because there's plenty of kids.
Trauma-based mind control is, that was one of the very first things I said, is that this is what it's supposed to do. And I remember I was on Twitter pretty much for 3 days straight because of that. I was just talking, watching everyone, kind of following the psyops and the propaganda. And that very first night, it was like nobody slept, because everyone was just
affected, everyone
traumatized. Yeah.
It completely did.
Luckily, or
that's a good point, sir. That's a good point.
You know?
I don't like to think myself as a sick bastard, but I did sleep like a baby that night. And relative to Mormon tales and that Mormon unit I was deployed with, I was a superintendent of logistics and resources for our military police unit, about a 500-man unit in Iraqistan in 2011. Our first sergeant was part of that, the 50 or so folks we had from the Salt Lake City National Guard there. You'll recognize this is our founding family, the Christians. Dwight, his name was Dwight Christensen, great guy, super awesome dude. He was our first sergeant, and their job in the unit is like take care of the enlisted troops and whatnot. And I was one of the senior ranking enlisted troops in the unit. And so he was always wanting, and we were friends. He was always wanting to talk to me. He was always weirded out by me, and he had no problem telling me that. So we would get these, indirect fire alerts. The alarms would go off. We're getting mortar attacked or whatever. Who knows? But then you're supposed to run to a bunker, and then they take attendance. There's Mormons. They love attendance. They're always taking attendance. So Dwight would always come by my office or my room and be like, "Hey man, you were not on attendance again for last night's fucking bunker." I'm like, "Dude, just take me off every list. I'm never going to show up at your stupid bunker patrol meetings or whatever you do. If I'm going to get blown up. I'm going to get fucking blown up." He's like, "You just sleep through this?" I'm like, "I just fucking sleep through it, bud." The guy looked at me like I was a complete psychopath. I think he's a psychopath for taking attendance inside a bunker.
Right.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious.
But it did affect folks. And I think that was the point. It seemed very psyopy.
Yeah. Whether it's real or not real, they accomplished their goal.
So and I know, Heidi, you got a punch here in a moment, man. I thank you again for joining me to get all of us here to get a little GCD tonight. And I want to give you an opportunity for some closing statements and plugs. But if I could just offer you also some resolution to some of these points we've been discussing thus far. So Society of Cincinnati, Kirk, the Lee boys here, John D. Lee, friend of Joseph Smith, right? He was a friend of Joseph Smith. But then he was the adopted son of Brigham Young under the early Latter-day Saint law of adoption doctrine. So we can see that the crossover there. We see that also he's involved in these false flag events. Again, we can see the, kind of what we're already talking about, right? With these other society matters manifesting here within, this fucker. And
Wow.
he was excommunicated, and then in 1877 he was executed by firing squad, which they love to do out there in Utah, don't they?
Sure do.
Well, they spill the blood upon the ground. It's all
Yeah, they're all
about
about that blood, right?
Yep. Blood atonement.
Blood
Although
atonement,
they'll
yes, ma'am.
say, Brigham, you can't prove that. I'm like, he
Yeah.
never ordered that. He never did that. I'm like, okay, good. Yeah. Sure.
So what can you leave us with here tonight, man? Besides forcing folks to wear underwear not being a factor of liberty.
No problem. I will say this. I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to be able to come together and speak still. There's a lot of places that don't. So for that, I'm grateful. But the things that they do to us in return for that is pretty heinous. We're never going to get to a point with people that are high up, or billionaires or government people. They're never going to care. I mean,
You mean like Cash Patel's boyfriend?
Right.
The
They
Mormon
don't care
never
about
did.
you. Like, it's like the funniest thing to have to explain to people. Like, you're like
Right.
an ant. They don't care. When you kill that ant, it had a family and it was getting food. And that's how much they care
Well,
about you. So
Well, you see that in the Mountain Meadows massacre with that damn Lee boy. So they murked about 120, 150 women and children for the
Yep.
purposes of presenting the means to the ends of their own political gains.
and then
Which
they
is what
took the
George
dresses
Washington.
and they wore them in front of their kids that were totally traumatized.
Well, George
Right.
Washington warned us of these events in 1796, and George Washington hated them Lee boys.
Yep. Well, it's a very weird web. I'm glad you brought that up because it ties completely into the Templar thing.
Yeah. We got Lee
It's
boys,
very
Society of Cincinnati,
strange.
and those damn Clan Vance fuckers again, right?
Yep. Well, and my family's no better.
I'm
So,
one of them.
and I do like to say again, I agree with Jacob. It is not the Mormon people. They do not even
Right.
know about this crazy stuff. Like if I went to a regular Mormon on the street and we did like the microphone thing, they would be like, "Are you okay? Do you need your medicine?" Like, because they would not know any of this. Okay, so they are not to blame. I don't have any hateful feelings toward them. I actually feel bad for them, and so that's kind of why I speak out. People say, "Hey, why don't you just give up and go away?" Thank you, Christopher. Just go away and shut up. And I'm like, but if you were on a boat and it was sinking, would you not go back and save people? Because I would. I think I would until I died. I think that's who I am. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. So I'm not hateful. I'm not trying to be mean. But if you guys want to check out my stuff, I am brutally honest. I will say that. So Unfiltered Rise podcast, everywhere podcasts are served. If you check me out on YouTube, you're going to be sorely disappointed because they're nuking people. So
Yeah.
once a week, maybe you will get a drop here, twice a week on Spotify, if not more. Also, my Patreon extra over there, and it's also available through the Spotify thing as well. So check me out
Yes,
there.
ma'am.
JJ, always wonderful. Thank
Yes,
you so
ma'am.
much, BT. I'm so
Thank you.
glad to have met you. And also, Jacob, so glad to have met you and hope to speak to you very soon. So,
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. I
ma'am.
Like
just
that.
I made sure to follow you on X, so I'll get
okay,
a hold of
I'll
you.
follow
and,
you back. Yes, let's do it.
I'll-
That
I'll
would be
put-
a great spooky season episode.
Yes, for sure.
I'll send a message to all of us as well, DMs wise, connect everyone here. But I'll put the links for you all in the show notes for the folks of the interwebs and folks checking out Unfiltered Rise. I'm a bit biased, but I highly recommend any conversation between myself and Heidi. There's some real barn burners.
That's right.
And for everybody out there that watches me or has anything to say, I appreciate you all. I read all your comments. If you comment on Spotify or my email or anything, I always try to get back to you. So it might take me a minute because you got to go through them all. But you know what? I'm in this to help people and talk to people. So if you want to do that, you can reach out. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
We'll catch you next time, ma'am.
Thank you so much, you guys. Bye.
Yep. See ya.
I guess I could have helped her off and taken her off the screen while she was searching for it. Too funny otherwise.
Right.
No, I always enjoy conversations with Heidi. We are distant kinfolk there, not only through that John Lothrop fella, but it is again a case of a lot of Mormon families are very much interrelated, and all of these society families are interrelated. Again, Charlie Kirk is both a Monroe and a Kirk, two different
Right.
society families. And those aren't his only ones there. So and I we've spoken a lot about the Mormon stuff, and you gents have some more time, we'll be bringing this thing for a close from here in about 45 minutes, if that sounds good.
I'm actually going to cut out now. It's getting late for me.
There you go, sir. Well, I was going to say, you're welcome to cut out as well. And Jacob J, you're also welcome to cut out. I'm going to force you to stay for a little bit longer,
I'm good to go.
Hostage-wise.
Later, everybody. Thank you.
Hey, good meeting
well,
you.
sir. Please provide any plugs or closing
All right.
comments.
True the Shadow Podcast. I'm on every pod slinger there is, YouTube. Most of the time on YouTube, unless I post something that YouTube doesn't like, which is rare. But find me anywhere you want. True the Shadow Podcast. Good night, JJ.
Thank you for joining us, sir. Link will be in the show notes, and look forward to talking to you again here, sir, soon. Well, Jacob J, remains only two JJs. JJ versus JJ. What do you say?
I say, I don't even know at this point, man. Like,
which JJ channel do they want to move to? There's two JJs here. You can't move to both.
Right. Honestly, I'm really, really tired of all the psyops.
Dude.
It's just relentless at this point.
No, that's a good point, though. And again, I think a lot of folks want to say it's black and white. I do think there's numerous factions perpetrating numerous psyops.
Yes.
Sometimes simultaneously. For example, Q was different. I like to say trust. I like to joke, trust the plan. Michael Aquino's buddy, General Paul Valle, QAnon General. I like to make a lot of these jokes, but there was obviously, to me, in my opinion, there's obviously different factions operating at different times, different purposes for this Q thing, and they were not in agreement. They were, one faction overtaking their faction using their psyop, basically hijacking it, right?
Right.
And for example, I often joke JFK Jr. is a lie, but Q never said that. In fact, Q said opposite of that. It was perpetrated in a different narrative by QAnon creators that JFK Jr. was alive, but there was never a message written by Q. So we can even see just in that, the disinformation campaign, just on that small slice of it.
Right. Well, and now we got the whole other side of it, which is BlueAnon, It's just 100% psyop fatigue. It's
BlueAnon is one of my favorite comedy shows, sir.
I mean,
the stuff they come up with is ridiculous.
It is, and
I say that thinking, again, recognizing that some of the Q stuff's ridiculous, but BlueAnon stuff's off the reservation.
I know, and I think it's funny because they are like the propagandized group, right?
Well, I can tell you right now, it's financed by the same clowns, right? The same Muppets here. We got the same. Who are them? I done lost where my brain hole was at. There's they finance most of what you see in this BlueAnon movement or in any Democratic podcasts. They did a big Newsweek article a couple months back saying they had a bigger podcast than Joe Rogan.
Oh.
I want to call them the Goldsteins, but I feel like that's just too anti-Semitic of me. You know what I'm talking about, right? They're the ones behind. Whenever you see these major movements, there's always a PR company behind it. There's always a marketing team. You remember them dead babies from the Desert Storm? Maybe a little bit before your time.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that lady, the Kuwait nurse, as she claimed, testified in the hallowed halls of U.S. Congress, saying she was a nurse in Kuwait and watched Iraqi army soldiers of Saddam Hussein spike babies on the ground. And all I can hear in my brain hole right now is Nancy Grace saying, "Dead babies, dead babies." That lady's always saying dead babies, Nancy Grace. But at the root of it, that lady was not a nurse in Kuwait. She was the niece of the ambassador from Kuwait to the U.S., part of the Kuwaiti royal family. And there was a PR agency behind all of it, Hill Knowlton. So it goes without fail. Ever since then, ever since I realized that, I presume there's always a PR company behind it.
Right. Well, it was just like the whole anthrax scare, that was all PR led.
Sir, we're 44 years into the satanic panic. I don't have time for an anthrax scare.
Yeah, that's true. The satanic panic definitely never ended.
Yeah, how does that not have a PR company behind it, right? I mean, you can Jedi mind trick Satan style, Muppet Mikey Aquino style as much as you want, but that's only going to get you so far.
That's true. That is true. I do find it funny though that because my personal opinion that the satanic panic is what we know is just flat out cover.
Well, yeah, there you go, sir. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on that as a former member of the Church of Satan and man who uses his brain hole as God intended, not for paperweight.
Yeah, I mean, it's it is just a way to kind of poison the well, because there was a lot of satanic crime and a lot of satanic murder, a lot of ritualistic murder going on at that time. And it was a way to just lean so far to that side of things that, they made the absurd ridiculous, I guess. It was just making it seem so absurd that to believe anything like that could happen, then all of a sudden you're the crazy one. And it's like, so
you're right, dude. And the propagandists, as I call them, the Nazi Satanist propagandists, they all read the Michael Aquino Nazi Satanist telemarketing script.
Right.
The same talking points as recited by Aquino and verbally and written to authors like Dave McGowan in an email that he did in 2001, and Dave McGowan published under Dialogue with the Devil. It's the same marketing script. And since Aquino's alleged death, at least, right? And him and his buddy, again, it's his co-author of Psyops of Mind War, General Paul Valle, who's been perpetrating the QAnon stuff on Fox News. He's on that Turning Point USA advisory board, and that should be something to say about that right there. We see the propagandists also. So we see that's one kind of, as I call them, like you can call it a pillar in the satanic panic. Another pillar in there is the propagandists, and another pillar is the they're adding the QAnon Pizzagate stuff to all of the satanic panic. And we see the same framework of their propaganda and ignoring the facts. So everyone says like, oh, you believe in Pizzagate? You think Comet Pizza has a basement? Well, yeah, jackass, it does have a basement. I know that because the actual owner, that secret Rothschild fella, he's a Rothschild, by the way, James Alefantis, he said he had a basement.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, and just look at
that is the nature of the evolution of it. It's the same propaganda campaign, just a couple, they just add the new shit, right?
Right. Well, and they kind of spun it off onto the heavy metal side of things. They were just like, oh, it's just a bunch of heavy metal. And dude, I am a metal fan through and through, right? And the thing is like the satanic bands, they don't hide it. Like, there's a bunch of black metal bands that love Satan, and they do not hide it at all. And I just find it funny, this whole idea of, the Parents Music Resource Center.
So they hired Al Gore's wife, that fellow that invented the interwebs.
Tipper Gore.
And she testified in Congress for him, saying that Satan's in your music.
Right.
So again, this is the controlled opposition. This is that pillar of controlled opposition, the satanic panic. This is financed by Charles Manson's friends, the Beach Boys. They're the ones who funded this. The Processing Beach Boys, you know what I mean?
Right, right.
The other person that tells us that Satan's in your music, and again, they're not wrong. I would argue that when you hear Jimmy Page wailing in a Led Zeppelin song and making a bunch of noises, that's some sort of fucked up Crowley ritual you've subjected yourself to. You said heavy metal. Well, the godfather of heavy metal, as we've seen recently upon his pass, everyone recognizes such, Ozzy Osbourne, devout Crowleyite. When he died, Jack Posobiec, that conservative jackass.
I will actually push back against that, good sir.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
So his song, Mr. Crowley, was actually a slam to him, calling him a charlatan.
Yeah, that's because they think they're better wizards than the other one, right? So he would later go on. I like your heads up there, sir.
Ozzy was a devout Anglican, though, is the issue with that. So
not well.
Black Sabbath is not a genuine satanic band. Now, if Led Zeppelin, I mean, who was it? Jimmy Page that bought Aleister Crowley's mansion,
the Moleskine house,
right? Right, and I actually believe that's why his son died.
Beach Boys, not Satan worshipers. RR, you never fail. Thank you much. Go ahead, sir.
Beach Boys, not Satan worshipers. I mean, come on.
I understand what you're saying. I think I like your brain holes that, sir. If I may push back a little bit. So I am only quoting Ozzy Osbourne when I say he was a devout Satan worshiper. I understand what you're saying about the Crowley song. I do think you're right. I think you're spot on. And as if you read the words of Michael Aquino or any one of these other jackasses of these Nazi Satan wizard varieties, they all think they're a better magician than the next. So This is why we
Right.
see so many offshoots of so many of these Thelemic organizations, be it Agape Lodge, Typhonian Order, OTO, Scientology, Process Church,
Right.
Victorianism, so on and so. You know what I mean? So they all think they're better wizards than the other guys. So I think that is what I view as what that Mr. Crowley song's about. But when I said that jackass Jack Posobiec, Mr. Office of Navy Intelligence.
Right.
He posted something on Twitter saying, Twixter, they're saying when Ozzy died that Ozzy was like you said, an Anglican Christian. And I said, that's a hot take. Here's Ozzy's own words saying that he's a Satanist and that he thanked the devil for saving him from COVID. So I do think that what we're talking about right now is a great example of the games these folks play. So they do want folks to get lost in semantics. So I'm sure Ozzy Osbourne intentionally would claim he's an Anglican at one time and then, tell the truth another time that he's a fucking Crowleyite. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because,
I just
again,
don't
that's the
see
deception.
anything to I don't, and that's not to say that he was a great guy, because I mean he fucked over some people with some royalties, like I mean he fucked over some people in the music industry. So that's
his wife, his first wife. He left his first wife for this current one, right? She's a real treat.
Well, actually, so his first wife had like checked out, and she was like gone, but then again at the time, I mean Ozzy was snorting so much cocaine, like he got fucked over by the management. Well, Black Sabbath did their first 4 albums, I believe. It was all like their houses, their cars, everything was in their manager's name. And so when they came out on the other side of that, they basically had no money and nothing. And so exactly what happened with his first wife, I mean, she was the one that ended up filing for divorce. So
okay, maybe I have that tale wrong.
And him and Sharon actually didn't meet, although Sharon's dad was the manager of Ozzy after he left Black Sabbath. Now, Sharon's dad, I believe wholeheartedly that man was evil through and through. I mean, he was like in the core of everything. And Sharon, I don't know. I'm not going to flat out say she's evil. But I would say she's definitely not on the good side of a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are tales, I mean, I think what you're identifying to me right now is some great tales in the future, talking about these matters of satanic panic regarding this PMRC stuff.
But there's different people to corroborate this is the issue. It's not just like them saying this is what happened. So
no, I like it.
But
so we do see Ozzy pictured here in the 87 Geraldo Satanic Panic special, right? Again, he's representing the PMRC here,
right?
Funded by Charles Manson's friends, the Beach Boys, the Processians, if you will, the Nazi Satanists. He's saying, yeah, I'm not a Satanist, but again, I think that's part of the deception. In fact, Michael Aquino and Anton LaVey, and Michael Aquino's own autobiography there, that garbage. He says their letter that he prints in there in that book, Church of Satan Autobiography, their intent is to have people argue about semantics,
right? So
and
that's
deceive folks that way.
That's 87, right? So
this is
that would have been long after he left Black Sabbath.
Oh no, for sure. And again, I just think these are the games I'll build a stronger case in a future conversation with you, sir, on why I think that is. But I try to take folks for their own words. He made numerous statements later in life thanking the Dark Lord and et cetera, et cetera.
Right, sure. And so did Slayer, but they're also Catholic. So, it's
yeah.
I mean, so
are they Catholic?
My Tom Araya is a Catholic.
All right. So, I don't know enough about them. I know they do have a lot of satanic imagery.
Yeah. But like I said, the satanic bands are not like hiding it is the thing. I mean,
I don't
if
think
you
he
look
was
at
though either. I mean, he's even getting celebrated here in a recent article for helping kids subvert Christianity.
That's weird. When did that happen? Ozzy Osbourne,
and he covered the Rolling Stones song, the Processian Nazi Satanist, "Sympathy for the Devil."
Right.
There's more reasons why I think that. I just, I like to try to take work. Again, you can't always take them for their own words. You got, like you're saying, you got to juxtapose it to their actions, right?
Right. And I mean, there's a lot to say that he wasn't. But here's what I understand is the people who get used by the music industry. Okay. And that this is my understanding as a Satanist or former Satanist, that people will get used when they're needed to be used. Right. So they're not locked in always. This is why some people actually lose their careers and never go away, because then they're no longer useful to the story, which is kind of weird why Charlie Sheen is coming back out of fucking nowhere.
No, I got some ideas on that, sir, but I think I like where your brain hole's at, because they were done using this guy in one of the pillars of propaganda in the Satanic Panic. This was the fake evangelical guy, right? Convicted kid diddler, right?
Right.
So he was never an ex-Satanist. He was a Satanist the entire time, it seems, looking at his actions.
So, I mean, here's the interesting thing. So Black Sabbath technically created heavy metal. Heavy metal, all of heavy metal is spawned from the diminished fifth chord. The diminished fifth chord is actually part of a bunch of satanic chords that you do not find in typical classical music. And the reason why is because it was thought that the diminished fifth would summon the devil. So typically you will not find anything within the diminished fifth chord. So their very first song, Black Sabbath, their title song, is actually written in the diminished fifth. You can actually see what's called the Devil's Tuning Fork is actually the logo for Judas Priest, another longtime British heavy metal band that came out around the same time.
So there's some actual like science, if you will, behind some of the notions of these ideas.
Yeah, there is.
Interesting. I'm not a musician, sir, so this is all very new to me. I like
See,
it though.
My other hobby is heavy metal history. So that's where I get a lot of this.
But we do see a lot of occultism throughout all music, not just rock and roll though. I mean, Garth Brooks is a serial killer, apparently. We got
see that I actually kind of believe.
I do too, actually. There's a lot of dark shit in country music, I think.
Right.
So and speaking about smiley face killer victims, Riley Strain 2 years ago was last seen at Garth Brooks bar in Nashville. It was the second to last stop. Yep. Huh. He often gets blamed. He got thrown out of Luke Bryan's bar, but the moment he walked in, his stop before that was Garth Brooks' bar. So,
well, and when he bought his house just right outside of Nashville, there was a bunch of people that started disappearing. So
I've seen some of those numbers, dude. It is alarming. It brings us the question: what the fuck's going on here, really?
Right. And I find it kind of odd that Tom Segura kind of brought that up as a joke. And
did he? Segura, are we talking about warring secret society wizards again? Because here's the deal. I would argue that Tom Segura falls within that kind of weird scenes profile.
No, I was actually just going to say that I think Tom Segura himself is amongst some really spooky people.
Got a lot of smiley face killer victims in Austin, Texas, sir.
Yes, sir. Well, that could have been led by a lot of people.
Well, but it's the early onset of this mothership invasion, if you will, of comedians.
Yes. And I found the name of that comedy club very interesting. The Mothership.
Well, he's an ancient alien cargo cultist. He's surrounded by them. I'm not going to say he's processing. Some folks claim he's the illegitimate son, the bastard child of Anton LaVey. He was hired as the entertainment for LaVey's grandson's wedding.
I did hear that. Well, and I mean, he is spooky. I mean, look, he has Chet Baker on his show all the time. And it seems like he has Chet Baker on his show every time, like the narrative seems to be drifting away, and Chet needs to kind of come in and reset things.
You're making some great points there. I break things down on, again, GCD, greatest common denominator, and he surrounds himself and espouses the ideals of the process church of the final judgment.
Yeah, you were not wrong. Well, and he's pushed a lot of mind control stuff too. The isolation chambers and psychedelics, of course.
Yes, sir. There you go. Brought to us by the Skull and Bones folks there, and the folks of the Council on Foreign Relations, mushrooms and LSD. What a great time.
Yes, sir.
And I saw some comments about the Grateful Dead there in Tipper Gore. Well, yeah, the Grateful Dead's a CIA Tavistock operation.
Yeah, literally the whole reason the
Literally.
band exists was to just like disperse LSD.
To market the LSD. Yes, sir. So
Yep.
the founder of
Yep.
the Tavistock, Alan Trist or Eric Trist? I always get them mixed up. Alan Trist. We'll go with it. Eric Trist. Alan Trist. One of the two. Father and son. One's the founder of Tavistock. He writes the paper in 1963 called Social Turbulence,
Yes.
which describes controlling society through chaotic events of terror, Operation Gladio style, like we see with the Process Church and their satanic serial killer friends. And we see that Trist invades America with the Process at the very same time. He goes to UCLA, though, and he sets up the early machinations for Lewis, Jolly, and West to then come later, a short time later, for the MK Ultra stuff. So there's an offshoot of Tavistock, MK Ultra, that a lot of folks don't like to recognize. And his son was the Grateful Dead Music Publishing Company's president and best friend of Jerry Garcia. And again, when we're talking occultism, they were the warlocks before they decided to read or at least cite the Egyptian Book of the Dead and call themselves the Grateful Dead.
Right. Which also the manager of the Grateful Dead ended up being Courtney Love's dad.
Hank Harrison.
Yes, sir.
Who is his daddy and what does he do, sir?
His dad I've actually never looked into. So
I will tell you right now why Hank Harrison found himself in the CIA, because he is of the Virginia Harrison family. One of the his forefathers, a founding father of America.
Jeez, they really are all connected, aren't they?
I do say these things and oftentimes in jest because I like to joke, but they are, sir. Yes, indeed.
Right. And that doesn't surprise me. But I mean, considering what he said about his daughter, supposedly not supposedly, I would say it's pretty well established at this point that she was the 90s version of Yoko Ono. And because Yoko actually came from a affluent family to come and run LSD to John Lennon.
That's right, sir.
It was her and John Lennon, or her and I can't remember who else, who got John back into doing LSD after he had quit because he didn't want to do it anymore. He didn't like it. And then Yoko.
You know where they met? John and Yoko?
No.
The Indica Lounge of the Process Church of the Final Judgment in the Mayfair district of London, owned by Peter Asher, a man connected to the Diddy scandal. He's a major executive in music, in the cousin of the founding member of the Process Church, Jane Asher.
Right.
Jane Asher was his sister, Paul McCartney's girlfriend. Their first cousin, Asher, recently passed away in Kanab, Utah, as a founding member of the Process Church of the Final Judgment.
Right. Yeah, she was the last one to pass away, wasn't she?
There's still a couple more alive. I think Gregory Castle just passed in May.
Well, I'm meaning like she was
she was
last,
one of the more recent. Yes,
yeah,
I believe.
The most recent.
We got a few more of those Muppets alive, and hopefully not well, but
yeah, no kidding. So there was a man that very first, the man that gave George Harrison, John Lennon, and it wasn't Paul McCartney, I don't think. I think it was Ringo, because they were going to meet up with Paul later that night, but it was the very first time they tried LSD. He was one of Sidney Gottlieb's friends, and he went over to England to pull in a lot of the rock stars to LSD. Turns out he was also related to the Process. I can't remember his name.
Typical.
I know I have it.
Are you familiar with the name Bouvier and the Vickers Gun Manufacturing Corporation?
That name does sound familiar.
So Anton LaVey's second wife wrote an autobiography for Anton. I'm not sure how that works out, but she did. Blanche Barton. She cites these early members of the Church of Satan, and one of which being Anton's mentor, which was this Bouvier fella, who was the heir to the Vickers Gun Manufacturing Corporation. And his wife was an Astor, and she was first cousins with Satan Drayton Astor, whose daughter was a founding member of the Process Church, married to Timothy Wiley.
Wow. Interesting.
These fuckers all know each other, sir. And speaking of Joe Rogan and his processing activities, you're familiar with Jeremy Corbell, that ancient alien cargo cultist who makes shit up in Congress?
Oh, yeah.
Well, before he was doing that, he was drawing weird photographs of Sharon Tate, or weird paintings of Sharon Tate in these weird art exhibitions. Sounds very processing.
No way. Yeah,
you
no
want
kidding.
to watch them do it? It's fucking creepy, dude.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, these guys are way weird. Like, dude, I like
they've
some
literally just been
avant-garde
making
stuff,
shit up.
but no kidding.
Stephen Greenstreet, the reporter for New York Post. Oh, my apologies there. Former Mormon. He was a missionary, I believe. As well. He writes a series on all these fuckers, these ancient alien cargo cult fuckers like George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell and all the shit they make up.
Right.
The Skinwalker ranches, all financed by the Rockefellers and the Mellons. It's the same old nonsense.
Right.
But yeah, dude, this is some creepy shit, dude. I recently discovered this looking into Corbell. He's got that same Anglo invasion Mormon past, by the way.
Right. Well, and this is kind of what's frustrating to me is a lot of these people, I mean, just use like the Mormon church as cover, because who's going to question a Mormon?
Well, again, I also think there's a contingent of them. There's a British invasion aspect to it.
Oh, for sure.
The Deseret, not America, right?
Right.
This is what I mean by painting. He's just throwing paint on actual other people's work.
Right.
It's fucking creepy, dude. Yeah. That's what he was
that's-
doing before
that's
all the alien
strange.
nonsense.
Yeah, and I agree with that comment, by the way. All the UFO and alien stuff, it's a total cover. It's a total cover. I think it's used to be able to explain a lot of people coming out of the mind control stuff.
You were talking about Kurt. I don't disagree, sir. You were talking about Cobain. Did you know that somehow, some way, Robert de Grimston, founder of the Process Church, was able to publish 15,000 copies of an op-ed in the New York Times somehow. Got them printed and distributed. Nixon outlives Cobain. Sales of black flannel skyrocket. Robert de Grimston. Special to the New York Times.
Wow.
15,000 copies of the New York Times were printed before they caught the inclusion of this article and had to stop the presses. I'll post a link here. He doesn't blame the process. He blames every other cult, Scientology, the National Security Council. That's interesting, Bob. Why would Bob blame them? Interesting, right?
No kidding.
He's still alive and hopefully not well, living in Florida.
Oh, I can't believe I couldn't think of this name. Robert Lashbrook.
I don't know him.
That's so by the mid 1960s, the CIA sent its MK Ultra deputy director Robert Lashbrook to its London station. Lashbrook had at least two key assignments. One was distributing human ecology fund grants in England to promote LSD there. Researchers famed writer A.E. Hotchner and a longtime editor of Ernest Hemingway's books said Lashbrook's other assignment was to have undercover agents give LSD to British musicians with and without their knowledge.
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
it was actually a dentist who dosed the Beatles the first time.
You gotta be dude, creepy fucking dentist, dude. Watch out for
Yes.
lasers and dentists, dude. I warned everybody last night on my Thursday show. Watch out for dentists and lasers.
Yeah, it was a dentist who dosed the Beatles for the very first time.
Charlie had
I believe.
Charlie had a weird dental friend who was a hypnotist and a Navy man.
Interesting naval intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
That ties
I found
over
this.
to
I did not know
Hubbard.
this fellow. I'll have to read more about him, sir. I appreciate you bringing that to my brain hole.
Yeah.
Do you know
Lashbrook.
this was a result of the Rockefeller Commission? Looks like 75 post church committee.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you know?
Yep.
Do you know who's credited with bringing to light these matters of the LSD experimentation during that Rockefeller Commission?
There was actually a few different people, but who are you thinking of?
John K. Vance, the former Inspector General of
Right.
the CIA.
Right.
Now, I would argue he fucking buried it, but they kind of celebrated as him bringing it to light. And I may add also, he's not my Vance. He is related. He is related and descended from that Captain Samuel Vance I was referring to before again with the Mormons.
Interesting. Right. Well, and I mean that would actually make a lot of sense because I mean the church committee hearings was a complete and utter limited hangout. You know, it
That was Nelson Rockefeller, sir.
Right. I mean, it's just a way for them to be able to say, yeah, you got us, but then them to keep it going on underground.
Well, it's the same thing we see with the Satanic Panic. They're going to give you the controlled opposition. So we get Nelson Rockefeller, who, by the way, is the Bill Colby operates under, Henry Kissinger, who's operating under Nelson Rockefeller. And we see Nelson
Right.
Rockefeller. He orders 2 Manson girls in September of 75. Apparently, I'm saying it's more, if you want to look for the blame, look to Nelson. He'd been
Right.
trying to be president since 1947 when he was
Yes,
the
he
U.S.
had.
Army intelligence officer assigned to the White House.
Yep.
No one, these are stories I got from bureaucrats in D.C. when I was briefly a bureaucrat. I was lieutenant colonel, civilian, equivalent at the Pentagon there, my managing money years of my career there.
Right.
Anyway, the bureaucrats, some of them which took kindly to me telling me some stories. I heard some stories about old Nelson, and he always wanted to be president. And sure as shit, when he was suddenly the vice president and elected, Gerald Ford almost gets murdered by 2 Manson girls in September of 75.
Right.
Then he fires everybody, and he fires Bill Colby, who was a CIA director. That's when we get George Bush.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. At the same time, before Nelson Rockefeller was vice president, that's who Ted Bundy was actually in Florida as a delegate for.
Yes, sir. He was the high up in the 1968 Washington state campaign, I believe, of Nelson Rockefeller.
Yes, sir.
Because he was also the driver for the lieutenant governor in the 1970 election, a man who would get appointed as a high-ranking bureaucrat in 5 Republican presidential commissions. That's how connected Ted Bundy was. And I asked, how did he get so connected? I would say, who was his daddy and what did he do? And I argue his daddy is RR Channel's favorite person, Bill Colby. You familiar with that one?
Interesting. No,
Colby not operating under Rockefeller. Dude, are you lost your mind? RR, I appreciate your dedication to being wrong, sir. It certainly keeps me alive and well here because I couldn't pay someone to be this wrong. So Ted Bundy's born to the bastard child of a mother in Burlington, Vermont, November of 1947.
Right.
1947. Bill Colby returns home from his Project Paperclip first round draft Operation Overcast, the first round draft of the Nazis in Project Paperclip before it became Project Paperclip. He gets back from that mission in December of 1946, or November of 1946. He starts school at Columbia Law School. His father is the ROTC commander at the University of Vermont in Burlington, a city of 40,000 people at the time. And the same city where 9 months later, Ted Bundy's mother gives birth to a child of an unknown father. I would argue that much like his father, both went to law school, and then this would also provide context as to why Ted Bundy was so powerful in politics, and also would provide context to why one of the most prolific serial killers is the biological son of the man who brought the Phoenix program home, satanic serial killers.
Right. Is there a connection between Bill Colby and Ted Bundy's first girlfriend, the one with the affluent family in California?
Challenge accepted, sir. All I can tell you is I can put Bill Colby likely in and around the town of Burlington, Vermont, where his parents lived while he was attending law school after he got back from World War II. Side note, and looking into these matters, Bill Colby graduated high school with my grandfather in Burlington. That's strange. And he was also presumably part of the OSS. He was O&I for sure. That much I do know, but my grandfather, that is. So, and there was O&I guys in OSS. It was Army as well and Navy as well as that comprised that. But and then I find out Bill Colby's third great grandfather, captain of the Massachusetts chapter of the Society of Cincinnati.
Right. Now,
Bill Colby's eldest son, Eldridge Colby, and he had an eldest son. So I presume that eldest son is the hereditary member upon the passing of his father. His father's still alive, Bill Colby's eldest son. So, and that Colby is a major figure in politics. And he used to live fucking across the street from me in Washington, D.C.
Interesting.
I can't make this shit up. I don't know if he's following me, but I'm not surprised. I wasn't following him. I know that much.
Right. I mean, the reason I ask about that girlfriend is because that's when I believe that Ted Bundy really turned into, who he was, is because there's a 6-month period when he spent in California that he has like no recollection of. He went out there, or it wasn't 6 months. It might've been like 3 or 4 months, but there's a whole period that he went out there. Her family is tied to the Rockefellers. or maybe it
it's
was,
been a while since I looked at that, dude. But you're making some points that are ringing in my brain hole at the moment. I think it is the
yeah,
Rockefellers.
her family was tied to the Rockefellers. I'm like 90% sure on that. And she was the one that like broke his heart, the one that got away, right? And
So what you're describing is perhaps what you're describing, sir, is some intentional trauma-based mind control actions.
exactly, because right after he went for that California visit that he can't remember at all, which is indicative of mind control, is when he got super popular in politics and started climbing the ladder. And
Yes,
it's
sir.
just really strange that, you know, and that, so they were
So
together.
if his
they
daddy
broke
was Bill
up.
Colby, this could provide context to everything you just described as far as how he got in that
Right.
position.
Right. Which also, I mean, how the hell did he get a job at a hospital counseling people with no degree, no prior experience, you know? And then he was also there at the hospital trying to steal records
Well,
from a very well-known MK Ultra doctor.
these are all great questions. Why did Thomas Eugene Creech suggest that him and Bundy suggested him and Eugene Creech, the Church of Satan member early on in 66
Yes,
there
sir.
at the Black House, Idaho prisoner still to this day, the man who would do everything Edward Wayne Edwards would do 10 years after Ed did.
Right.
In fact, they were in the same Chillicothe Federal Reformatory 10 years apart.
Right.
Same place Ed was there with Charles Manson and Otis Toole.
Right.
So-
which all ties into the the 4 pi cult.
There you go, sir. So there's a lot to be said about a lot of these things. And again,
Right.
I would not surprise me. Again, Bill Colby is very likely in Burlington, Vermont at the same time Bundy's
Right.
mother gets pregnant. And again, if I could find my
Interesting.
picture here, sir, I would show you. And on that note, and I have one, we'll close this thing out here. I got one more clip I'd like to show you here.
Yeah, of
And a
course.
double round of who is your, we got double round of JJ's here. So I got to have a double round of who is your daddy and what does he do?
You tell me, who is your daddy and what does he do?
So you want me to believe Jeffrey Epstein and his alleged brother Mark are biological brothers? You want me to believe a
Right.
6'1", almost 6'2", 190-pound lean muscled man such as Jeffrey Epstein? I'm not gay or hitting on the guy. I'm just saying, calling it as I sees him.
Right. Right.
Again, reading witness statements from his original court case by his staff, he would work out 3 hours a day. And again, he looks pretty fit, even in his elder age.
Right.
I'm not convinced that Lieutenant Commander Navy SEALs uniform he wore to the Queen's party there, which was not a costume party, was not an
Right.
actual uniform because he wore the dress whites.
Interesting.
So, and on that note, I don't think he's Jewish. He's 6'1", almost 6'2", 190, dude.
Right.
And that's allegedly his biological brother, Mark.
Right.
Now,
Right.
Jeff there had a WASP name. I don't recall the exact one off the top of my brain hole. Under a Saudi Arabian passport with a white Anglo-Saxon name. I might argue that's his actual name, and Jeffrey Epstein is simply a cover.
Right. I think Jeffrey Epstein is actually just a character. Just
Right. There you
know,
go,
some-
sir.
some
Yeah, he's like the
spooky
Where's
character.
Waldo deal. Go send him around the world, have him
Right.
photograph with everybody.
right.
I'm not saying he's not a diddler. I mean, there's some evidence, obviously, to substantiate those claims, obviously, and there's obviously the networking as well. I'm not saying these things. I'm just
Right.
saying, like, there's a lot more to that tale.
Oh yeah.
And
Well,
I'm
yeah,
not buying who his
there's
daddy
there's
is.
a lot more. There's a lot more to a lot of these people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the whole point. These people are going to be shielded from the public one way or another, and if they are in the public by being photographed with everyone, their true identity is most likely going to be hidden.
Yeah, and what is the public to these folks? If they have a different understanding of what is their normal, right? And we're getting
Right.
propagandized through narratives, right? We
Right.
can only guess their normal, what that is. We don't exactly know, and I think we make some educated guesses and such. What I'm saying is
Right.
there's a different reality they live under.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, these are the social engineers though, right? So, I mean, while everyone's clamoring on about Jeffrey Epstein, which I think is a good thing, like obviously we need to be talking about this, but I mean, there is another Jeffrey Epstein out there, you know.
For sure.
These things didn't stop, and so
Well, hours
Just-
after Kirk was shot, right, sir? Hours later,
Right.
the U.S. Senate would then vote not to release anything further on Jeffrey Epstein.
right. Right.
Well, no one was paying
Which-
attention.
Imagine that. Imagine they would not waste a good crisis.
This is what I mean by folks living in a different reality than what's the propagandized narrative amongst public society. There ain't
100%.
no way internally to this family do they think Woody Allen. Well, speaking of Woody Harrelson, I'll get to that in a minute. Woody Allen is and there's no way in the family that they did not consider Frank Sinatra the father of this child.
Right.
I don't buy it.
Right. I have heard this
don't buy it.
before.
I don't buy that Arnold Schwarzenegger ate breakfast at his table with his maid every day there and their bastard child they had together, looking just like Arnold more so than his actual Shriver kid does.
No kidding.
And they're not having that discussion. Hey, why does the Mexican kid looks just like dad? Like no one's having that discussion.
Right.
Or is that accepted normal practice within that family? And these things get spilled out and then they get sold to false narratives to the public about it, right?
From what I understand, a lot of this is probably just how it is within these families. It's a lot of secrecy, which makes a lot of sense because that's how they treat everything. So
apparently, and this came out in recent years, Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey are brothers. They've known about it for a long time.
Really?
In fact, Matthew McConaughey's mother says she banged that assassin fella. Woody Harrelson's dad. So, and what I'm saying is these folks, they admit they've known it internally to their families for a long time.
Right.
And when you look at Rooster McConaughey, dude, you can say like, oh, he looks more like a Harrelson than anything else.
Right.
Dude, you ain't telling me this is Matthew McConaughey's elder brother by the same Harrelson father that banged Matthew McConaughey's mother.
Holy shit.
And again, even the mother recognized it, and they've made public statements recently, but they've said in those statements, including the mother, that they've known about this for a long time.
So that leads a lot of credence to the whole Billy Corgan and Bill Burr thing.
Yes, sir. Who was your daddy and what does he do?
Right. Damn.
I mean, you look at this guy in the street, you can see this guy in the street, you're like, oh, that's obviously a Harrelson right there. And he is.
Right. Huh. Yeah, I've never seen him before. That's wild.
Right. Starting to see why I like to play this game. Who's your daddy and what does he do, sir? Because it seems to be relevant time after time.
No kidding.
If I could find, here we go. I just about to say, if I could find my Bill Colby matchup with his son Ted, Bill and Ted's Murderous Adventures, what I like to call this picture.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes, sir. Doesn't get much more striking resemblance than that, does it? Both men went to law school. Both men murdered a lot of folks.
Talk about, Castro and Justin Trudeau. It's like these two are a spitting image as well. Wow.
Well, you ain't kidding, sir. I lost a lot of sleep that night when I discovered this one. In real world.
Right.
Because I also discovered Bill Colby graduated with my grandfather. Vermont's my home away. It's my bootleg home state. I was born in Connecticut, but I spent every summer of my life in Vermont. It's kind of my fortress of solitude, if you will.
Right.
During my military career. And I'm doing a show on Sunday, Israel Keys, the satanic serial killer, who knew the Kehoe brothers, who knew Timothy McVeigh, who was part of that Aryan Nations compound, a fundamentalist Mormon by childhood raisings. He would invade Operation Gladio style, Bill Colby's queer style, satanic serial killers, Phoenixburg, come home to provide terror, Operation Gladio style, and fundamentally alter the way folks live in the state of Vermont in 2011.
Right.
I seen it.
Right.
So all these theories that are our channel who might thoroughly enjoy their responses, and I couldn't pay for someone to provide a better response. and be, I always say it's important to keep, if you find someone who's always wrong, sir, it's important to keep them around because that way you know where you're at in life. It's a good sanity check, if you will.
Right.
Anyhow, these things that Dave McGowan proposed 25 years ago plus, they seem relevant. They seem accurate. They seem spot on. When we can start using the examples to prove the thesis, right?
Well, I mean, it's the most logical hypothesis in my opinion.
Right? Trust your senses is what I tell folks.
Right.
Muppet Mikey Aquino will have you believe his Jedi mind trick because he was a Star Wars fan fiction author.
Yes, he was.
These are not the Satanists you're looking for.
Right. Well, and it's always interesting to me that are you telling me that Satanists are the only ones that don't harm children and don't commit crime? Like, get the fuck out of here.
That eyebrows, I wouldn't trust anything he said, but yes, that is what they claim.
Right. And that's crazy to me. It's people in all sorts of positions do all sorts of terrible things. So you can't tell me that.
I'm glad you said that, sir, because I don't want to diminish the Mormons. They did a lot of good stuff for me. I don't know about you. I thank them for not diddling me during Boy Scouts. I thank them for a lot of the conspiracy. They helped my conspiracy theory worldview. They very much
same actually.
Yeah, I have a lot of good things to say about them. As much as I've talked shit about them, as we close out here, I do want to focus. There are other ancient alien cargo cults and religions that wield an insurmountable amount of power and do wacky Looney Tune shit. So this whore right here, who's a Muppet in Congress, she used to be a stripper down in Destin Beach. Not exactly a nice place to be a stripper, sir. Destin Beach, Florida. But she's also the congressman for Clearwater Beach, Scientology's Xenu's headquarters in Florida. And here she is with an OT high-ranking Scientologist hugging away.
Interesting.
She's at the forefront of all this UFO disclosure, right? Anna Paulina Luna, the former stripper.
Which is complete bullshit. Yeah,
I don't. In America, you can be a stripper 6 years ago, and 6 years later, you can be in Congress talking to Scientologists and telling lies about shit.
Right.
This is America.
This is an amazing country, no matter what.
I am being smartass, but it is an example of it. There is things that can be achieved. We didn't have the nature of control, propaganda, psyops on psyops.
Right.
We see the purpose of which is to obviously control society and its social turbulence, Tavistock process, church type fashion. And we see these things being perpetrated in terror through Israel Keys, through other serial killers, Thomas Cruise, Ted Bundy, Bill Colby's son, Bill and Ted's Murderous Adventure.
Right. That blows my mind. That is wild. I'm definitely gonna have to look into that more.
Well, we'll definitely discuss further in the future, sir. I would certainly like to get more of your thoughts on the regards of satanic panic, Satanism, and serial killers altogether. But we can call this one in here, sir. Have you got any closing statements or any thoughts or plugs you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would just like to say thanks for having me on again. This was definitely a lot of fun. There's a lot of crazy things going on right now, and I think these conversations with people who at least have an idea of what's going on, this is what's going to help break through a lot of that psyop, which is just a psyop upon psyop upon psyop upon propaganda upon propaganda. And so these conversations, I think, actually do help not only us, but they help people that watch shows just like this to try and hopefully make sense of some of this. And I think that that's one of the most valuable things right now. And honestly, I appreciate what you do, sir. And I appreciate you having me on. The best place to find me.
I can't agree with your statements more. I share those same sentiments. And I thoroughly enjoyed, again, that anniversary show on your Rise to Liberty for your anniversary show.
Yeah, that was
I'm gonna have to ask you to
fun.
get a copy of that, or maybe just get it myself off your feed.
Post on my timeline. Send you a copy.
I appreciate it. I really enjoyed that conversation, sir. I do enjoy your insights on a lot of these topics. We, despite being former Exmos, despite also both being JJs, we are from different generations, different backgrounds, and have a slightly different bend on things. And I think your take on Ozzy Osbourne is unique and interesting. I certainly would like to further discuss those and many other matters. And I'd like to also share with you my Process Church Invasion of America anniversary card here, the Process Muppets Invade America.
Yes.
We just recently hit the 40 or 58th anniversary, I believe it was. So,
Right. Yeah. Anytime. Like I said, I have a wealth of knowledge of heavy metal history and satanic panic and all sorts of stuff. So yes, actually that's,
and there's something to be said about that with, anyone can just go on the interwebs and see the sound that moves sand or anything else, So these noises that are made in this music, when I say it's not just the lyrics, you're onto something, sir. I like where your brain was at, because that's the point I'm trying to make. It's not just the overt and exoteric nature of that music, that's satanic music.
I actually don't think that
the noise and product of the rhythm, I guess, right? Because you got different rhythms and hertzes. You got a couple different factors in there.
Well, and it's just like food, like
backwards masking. That's a real thing.
You become what you eat, and you become what you listen to. This is why I'm not a fan of rap music, but that's my personal opinion.
Well, you make a good point. I don't listen to a lot of contemporary music. In fact, one of my favorite artists is Sam Cooke.
Right.
I make sure that one. I'm a big fan of Sam Cooke. Yeah, it's some old rock and roll, if you will. Before the age of Horace and Tuesday Weld introduced us to all the processing music.
Right.
The day
Yeah,
the music
and,
died, Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, that era, right?
Yeah, oldies are great. I grew up on the
Well,
oldies.
Well, the day the music died is allegedly in salute from Don McLean.
Right.
Don McLean, number 3, his third great grandfather, Lieutenant Colonel McLean of the New York chapter of the Society of the Cincinnati. Just saying. He was allegedly
Right.
dating Tuesday Weld at the time of that song, his one hit wonder. And that salutes Tuesday Weld's alleged ritual sacrifice of the old rock and rollers to bring in the new age of rock and roll, whom she was all friends with. She sings
Right.
on the Beach Boys. They salute her in the Beatles. They salute her in the Rolling Stones. And I think one of my favorite bands, Leonard Skinner, may have disrespected old Tuesday. And that's why their whole, much like Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and Richie Valens, they all ended in a fiery plane crash. Shortly after Tuesday's Gone with the Wind, well, Leonard Skinner was gone with the fucking plane crash.
Right. Yeah, we'll definitely have to get into that. That would be a fun conversation for sure. Because, yeah, like I said, I have a bunch of knowledge about that, and that was just something I've been into. You know, music was always a big thing for me growing up. So I think I held my first Judas Priest album when I was probably 9 years old. You know, so
Well, that's interesting, sir. I've never been into that kind of music, so I'm certainly looking forward to those conversations and learning more about it.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, the best place to find me is anywhere Rise to Liberty. The most active places I am is Twitter or X, also Instagram and Telegram. Just pretty much anywhere Rise to Liberty. I'm actually in the process of switching over from a normal website. I'm switching everything over to my Substack. So
I just saw that. I went to your website and I was going to bring
Yep.
it up, but it's out of commission. I didn't want to
Yep.
say that, but now I see why.
Yeah. I'm working on switching everything over. So sometime about probably this time next week, everything should be up and rolling. But my Substack is going to be home base from now on. There's going to be like paid subscriptions and all sorts of like really fun stuff. I do still have my merch up, which is risetoliberty.store. That's still active. I've got some new merch coming, some t-shirts, stickers, trying to get this Epstein Christmas ornament. But every time I put it up, the store cancels it and knocks it down.
Dude, what better way to say happy holidays than an ornament of Jeffrey Epstein or maybe even his pal Kevin Spacey?
Right. Well, it's pretty cool. I'll send you a picture of the ornament. It says this ornament didn't hang itself.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So,
I like that, dude. That's great.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's pretty much anywhere Rise to Liberty, and just keep it a lookout for things on my Substack. There's going to be some really, really cool shit coming.
I will make sure I get that updated in the show notes for folks to check out. And I do thank your time, sir. Appreciate the conversation, the discourse, and I thank you for getting a little GCD here tonight. Look forward to future conversations
Anytime.
on a lot of these topics. Yes, sir. We'll definitely be in contact. If I can offer a couple quick plugs here from Operation GCD, we got Operation GCD Sundays on Sunday, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Times. That's Muppet Israel Keys, you know, Timothy McVeigh and the Keogh brothers' friend. You know, the Mormon fundamentalist Nazi Satanist serial killer that fundamentally changed the way folks live in Vermont. That'll be Sundays on Sunday. And I got Saturdays from this past Sunday where I was ill. That Muppet Judy Clark, you need to cover up a false flag parapolitics federal case. From the Boston bomber to the Unabomber, call Judy Clark. This Muppet will take care of your business. Now, the Unabomber, I did a show a few Sundays back. JJ, that's me. Not you, sir. JJ, this one.
Yeah.
Meets the Unabomber, and I tell the tales of my understandings over time of the Unabomber case and the complete travesty of justice that transpired there. We don't know who did it. We definitely don't know that Ted did it. And this Muppet who Ted tried to fire and the court would not let him, she helped perpetrate that. And then when she defended the Boston bombers, again, she keeps getting called in for all these events. She tells the judge, my client, Zokhar Tsarnaev, is guilty, but not for the reasons you say he is. That's not a defense, dude. That's not. You should, by all definitions of the terms of her oath of being a fucking Muppet attorney, she should be disbarred for that statement.
Right. No kidding.
You don't defend your client by opening the statement saying, "Oh, my client's guilty."
Right. That's insane.
The double JJ symposium. So I got that coming up on. Isn't it right? So again, it's the anatomy of the false flag cover up. Judy Clark, the Muppet. I'm going to be unpacking her actions in regards to these things, and in regards to real quick, Wednesdays, Heidi Love will be back for some of those Bond, Aleister Crowley, Ernst Blofeld tales of the villains of Bond that Ian Fleming, the author, says is Onassis and Crowley there. So,
Right.
but yeah, in regards to these matters, dude, so the Boston bombing, I'm sure you're familiar with Dave McGowan's work.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic work and coverage on that. Great. I'll put a link to get Dave McGowan stuff here tonight's show. I'll do it for tomorrow's as well. But I like to break things down to the greatest common denominator. You can just go on the federal website, the court's website, Pacer. You'll find a amicus curiae brief, a friend of the court, for that silly Latin lawyer speak. And he wrote, it's a law professor. He read the federal court case against Tsarnaev there and realized the FBI is presenting one silver backpack and one black backpack, calling them the same backpack, and entering both of them as evidence in that case. And he wrote him and saying, "Hey guys, you can't say the guy blew up the backpack he's holding in one picture, but it's a different colored backpack with the bomb in the other picture." So again, this is the Muppet world we live in.
It almost sounds like the story we're getting now with Tyler Robinson, you know?
There you go, sir. You build the framework and it becomes very apparent. So the Tsarnaev brothers, the FBI went on TV and said, "Hey, look, we have this picture of these guys in the wrong backpack, by the way, saying we need help finding these guys, identifying these." They knew who they were. They had been paid FBI informants for years. And their uncle, Tsarnaev, their paternal uncle, was married to the CIA operations chief and was probably CIA himself. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that. That is wild.
Rusnev I always want to say he was married to James Jesus Angleton's daughter, but it's not it.
Right.
It was another operations chief though. Rusnev Tsarnaev, I think. Hold on one second, sir. Please continue.
I am so surprised that I'm surprised at this point. You know? Like I hear these things, I learn these things, and I just can't believe I'm surprised at this point. I should just throw my arms up and be like, yeah, of course. That makes sense.
you're using your brain hole, sir. You already said it. It's the matters of, you said like Robinson, right? Well, I mean, it's the same framework.
Right. Exactly.
Same patterns.
I've heard this story before, you know.
Yep. Hey,
different players.
Is this, a sequel?
Right.
Yeah, Ruslan Tsarnaev, right? He's married to the operations chief. CIA operations chief's daughter. He was probably CIA himself, actually. He lives in DC. So, and then the older brother that allegedly gets murked by his younger brother, even though we see him alive on, with the police handcuffing him.
Right.
So that story doesn't match up. He's married to the founder of the Skull and Bones granddaughter, Russell.
And there it is.
Newport, Rhode Island. In fact, that's where she went to go live with her surgeon father's house in the wake of the incident. Catherine Russell, I believe is her name, Tsarnaev, and her second or third great grandfather was the founder of the Skull and Bones.
Right. Of course it is.
So these Muppets all know each other,
PSYOP fatigue, man. PSYOP fatigue.
Yep, these Muppets all know each other, and we see the repeating patterns. George Zinn's everywhere, right? He's the Forrest Gump of false flag operations.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, he seems like a Jack Ruby, you know. Like that's just what it seemed like to me. So
well, if folks want to hear more about the Tsarnaev case, it's something I have been studying a long time, and on that note, folks can check it out on Operation GCD Sundays. Disregard Sundays on Saturdays here, 9:15 p.m. And I'll ask you this one: did you know? Because you're a man who uses your brain hole, sir. I respect that,
right.
And you are very well versed in conspiracy culture. I was a little surprised. No disrespect, of course. Again, this is the nature of propaganda.
Right.
I don't think that a lot of folks know Russell and Tsarnaev was CIA, their uncle.
Right. Yeah.
Did you know this guy got murked? This was the older brother's roommate. The FBI would go question him for a few hours, and then suddenly he steals the FBI guy's gun and shoots himself in the head. Go fuck yourself.
Yes, I did know that he got murked.
Well, there you go, sir. You are a very sharp man, sir. So there's a lot of weird shit goes around there. He was also an informant for the FBI. And then apparently the two FBI guys shows up at his house, was it South Carolina or Florida there, shortly after the Boston bombings. They questioned him for a couple hours. No, he just accidentally stole the FBI guy's gun and shot himself in the head during the interrogation.
Right.
Get the fuck out of here, dude.
Right.
What Muppet world is this, dude?
I don't know. They think they think we're all stupid, you know? Like that's just how it is. They really do think we're all stupid.
I think that's part of it. You get away with this tomfoolery for so long, you get a little egotistical. Then those people hire dumber and depraved people to replace them, and then we find ourselves in Muppet World 2025. So that's an accurate analysis.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But hey, I want to thank you again for having me on. This was always a blast, and I'm definitely looking forward to the next.
As a fellow JJ and a fellow ex-Mormon, I will welcome you back anytime, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
And folks at the interwebs, thank you all for joining us here tonight to get a little GCD.
Well, that's it. That's the show here, folks. So the next time you're out on the town, visiting your local watering holes, or perhaps just meandering around, and you hear the unmistakable sounds of metal clanking, and you spot signs of a disturbance, well, check your six. Look in that garbage can, because you never can tell. The GCDs may be loose in your town.